A man opens a dusty trunk and lifts a faded battle flag, fabric stiff with age, insignia unclear. The room tightens. This is not a souvenir. It is a missing page that demands a name. Method first. Lay the textile on a neutral surface. Photograph both sides. Record dimensions, stitch pattern, color bands, and depot marks. Bag a thread sample for non-destructive analysis. Magnification shows field repairs and a corner cut and restitched, likely replacing a torn grommet. Along the hoist sit 5 faint ink stamps that resemble late War Depot codes. One ends with the number 7. Another reads like September. Fluorescence suggests a cotton blend from a specific supply chain. Trace the path. The trunk label lists a port and a date near the end of hostilities. Shipment records confirm a convoy, then a quartermaster depot. An estate sale moves the trunk in the 70s to an antique dealer. Years later, a private collector buys it. Now battlefield context. Cross-check unit rotations for the month on the stamp. Map engagements within 3 days of that week. Search after action reports for flags seized from command posts. One report describes a short fight that overran a signals detachment. A note mentions a banner cut down by a corporal. Coordinates point to a farmhouse crossroads. Go there. The field is new, but the hedgerow still rides the contour. A detector finds corroded fasteners near a shallow depression. A shard of ceramic hints at a broken insulator. Farm records survived. In a ledger, the owner wrote about soldiers, smoke, and a flag dragged through mud. The corporal must be real. Muster rolls list for corporals that week. One shows a field promotion 2 days later and a hospital entry for concussion. His service number matches a stencil along the flagpole sleeve when rake light catches it. Call the family. Caution first. We do not ask to tell a story. We ask for validation. They share a photograph of a young non-commissioned man beside a torn banner. The top seam matches the restitched corner. The mud streak aligns with our textile. Ethics set the next step. Provenance must be stronger than a hunch. We compile a dossier with images, lab notes, shipment data, and unit reports. An independent curator reviews the lot and writes an opinion. Plan the handover at the family home. No ceremony, only witnesses who matter. The curator explains the findings. I read the ledger line from the farmhouse. A grandson touches the frayed edge and pulls a breath. The flag does not erase grief. It restores a line that was cut. Afterward, we transcribe everything. Coordinates, names, methods, margins of error. The flag is not a trophy now. It is a primary source with a place, a time, and a man. What began without a name becomes a chapter with verified anchors. The work ends in a living room, with the past indexed to the right family. The record stands. We start with the cloth. Plain weave wool bunting, medium weight, with a selvage. Stitching is uniform by machine, 6 to 7 per centimeter, broken where field repairs yank the line. Under raking light, a shadow emerges where a tag once sat. Adhesive residue, right angle, 2 nail bites. We check the header. Cotton tape reinforcement, 2 brass grommets, 1 deformed. Inside the tape sits a smudge of blue ink. Ultraviolet brings it back. 2 lines, a maker code, then a depot stamp with a year. The font matches period dies. A good sign, not proof. Next we hunt for unit marks. Flags often carry nothing, but field units improvise. Along the hoist, beneath a repair, there is charcoal scoring. Not letters, numbers. We dust with rubber crumbs and lift an imprint. 3 kp, 2 BTL, then a truncated field post number. That sequence suggests a 3rd company of a 2nd battalion. Field post tables can anchor that to a regiment and a place. We open wartime lists. Field post numbers are the spine of the army. The digits align with an infantry regiment that fought a river crossing in autumn. Logs from both sides mention a captured color on the east bank during a night withdrawal. Our flag shows the same blackened edge expected from flare ash. Pattern and moment begin to converge. Now the chain of custody. Inside the grommet sits a sliver of waxed cord. American quartermaster tags used it. We photograph the fibers and match the twist to surviving tags in a local museum. Shipping manifests list a bundle of enemy flags crated in late winter from an advanced depot to a stateside port. One manifest carries a crate number that also appears, faintly, in graphite on our header. Not elegant, but a link. False trails appear. A post-war collector pinned a name in ballpoint on the reverse. We test the ink, modern dye base, not wartime. Discard. Another stamp reads souvenir. The typeface reveals a cheap set sold in the 50s. Discard. What survives is older, messier, more convincing. We return to the charcoal numerals. The regiment's 3rd Company lost its guide during that river action. The after-action report lists 2 runners missing. One runner's pocket log mentions tying a flag to a fence post to mark a rally point. Both men vanished in the same hour. If the flag fell there, it tracks with the capture note and the shipping timeline. This is not an emblem now. It is metadata made of cloth. Every stitch points backward, toward a man who carried it through water and smoke. We have enough to name the unit, place the night, and close the circle from hands that raised it to the family that waits for it to come home. The flag begins as fabric pressed to dirt. Shell bursts fade, and the position falls. A private from an exhausted rifle squad lifts the cloth, not as a souvenir, but as proof that the line is moving. He folds it fast, pushes it into his field bag, and follows the shout to keep advancing. Hours later, he is numb with cold and smoke. The flag is damp, heavy with mud, already carrying a record of impact that no camera caught. In a barn seized for triage, the bag is emptied for a quick check. Rations, spare socks, a crumpled postcard, and the flag. A medic glances over, nods the private through. The fabric rides with him in a truck that jumps ruts and ditches until the engine knocks. When the unit rotates to the rear, kit is cleaned. Mud sloughs off the flag in a galvanized pail. Beneath the grime appear flaked paint on a staff sleeve, stenciled numerals, and stitching that matches a depot pattern. The private does not know that yet. He only knows he kept something that proves he was there. A quartermaster sergeant stamps a form and waves a line forward. Men drag footlockers across planks to a tent where sensors cut open parcels. The flag lies flat on a table under a single bulb while an officer weighs policy against morale. No propaganda value, no sensitive code, no maps. The officer signs the corner of a sheet, and the fabric moves again, wrapped in brown paper and tied with cord that bites into calloused fingers. At a rail yard, the crate rattles among crates, canteens, boots, and typewriters. Oil and smoke and winter air blow through the slats. The manifest lists parts and clothing and personal effects. Somewhere inside the stack is a package with a surname and an army post office number. The train pulls into a port where cranes lift freight by the throat and drop it into a hold. A troopship groans. Men disappear below decks with duffel bags like seed sacks. The flag drifts on a slower channel, logged, stacked, and sealed. Storms shove the hull 3 days in a row. Salt percolates through seams. Water stains the paper, but not the fabric. On the other side of the ocean, forklifts squeal. Customs inspects, stamps, releases. The package rides a truck convoys inland, then a mail route that runs past silos and water towers. It reaches a clapboard post office with a brass window and a clerk who knows every family in town. He slides the bundle into a canvas bag destined for a porch with peeling paint and a tin star hammered over the stoop. Home front life absorbs the package without ceremony. A father opens it on a kitchen table scarred by pans and homework. No words are read aloud. The paper is folded, the flag refolded, and placed in a cedar chest with winter blankets. Years pass. The private does not come back. The chest moves when the house sells, then again when the family downsizes. The fabric is carried up a narrow staircase into a dry attic under a triangle of heat and dust. Up there, the seasons drum on the roof. Rods of light pierce gaps in shingles and sweep across trunks and boxes. Mice chew labels off mason jars, then vanish. A child becomes an adult and hauls the chest down 2 steps, then gives up and pushes it back. A realtor clicks photos, wide angle, bright, never looking inside. The flag waits. Faint grease from fingers once stained with cordite has fixed the folds. The stenciled numerals fade but survive. A storage tag curls, still hanging by a thread. Decades compress into a heartbeat when a careful hand finally lifts the lid. The cedar breath escapes. The fabric slides into air for the first time in a lifetime. Stains, stitching, a unit mark, a depot seam. A camera focuses. A notebook opens. The journey that began in shock and momentum ends in quiet clarity. What felt like a relic of victory becomes a record of movement, a ledger line through systems and chances, from a trench to a table to a chest to an attic. Now the path can be reversed. Now the work of return can begin. I start with what can be proven on paper. The flag is silent, the documents are not. A faded field tag in the hem yields a capture date, a grid reference, and a penciled surname that does not match the unit stamp. War diaries are blunt instruments. In the battalion diary, I find an entry at 16:20 hours. Enemy position overrun, 1 company standard seized. The grid square matches the tag. A second line notes the standard was forwarded to the rear underguard. Captured material moved through collection points to a processing depot. Each handoff created paper. I scan index cards, requisition forms, and carbon copies. A serial number repeats across 3 forms. It links the flag to a wooden crate, and that crate to a truck manifest. The manifest is routine and therefore gold. Departure 0430. Route via milepost 41. Load. Mixed captured items. At the bottom is a signature repeated in a depot photograph. Depot records are precise. Items were weighed, measured, and assigned to a shipment class. Flags were logged as political items and locked in a steel cabinet. A clerk typed the cloth had soot in the weave and a tear along the hoist. The cloth shows both. Paper and object begin to converge. From the depot, the chain splits. Intelligence evaluation or trophy distribution. Intelligence means an analysis report and a retention order. Trophy means a plane or a ship and a customs declaration. I find the customs form first. The crate number appears again, matched to a pallet loaded at an airfield 3 days later. Destination, a rear area postal zone. The receiving officer has the same surname as the penciled note on the tag. Now the diary of the rear area unit picks up the thread. The surname appears in a roster, then in a casualty line. Wounded by mortar fragments while escorting convoy. Transferred to field hospital and evacuated. His effects were sealed and shipped. I follow his effects because effects were audited with care. Inside the list is an entry that should not be there. 1 cloth standard of enemy origin. The trail tightens. The effects bag reached a stateside base. The bag was opened for inventory. 2 items were removed for evidence. The cloth standard remained and was released to next of kin with the rest of the belongings. The signature on the release form matches a family name on a headstone in a small cemetery. I verify each step against shipping logs and unit returns. 1 source is noise. 3 sources make a line, and I move. The last document is a letter from a quartermaster office to a local postmaster, confirming delivery of a war effects parcel requiring signature. That hand appears again in a ledger that notes a visit by a woman collecting a parcel after a telegram. The parcel number matches. There is no room for legend. The path of the flag is not romance. It is ink numbers, names that endured fire and time. The paper is a map that ends at the doorbell and someone who waited. The table is bare except for the flag, a caliper, a loop, and a cold beam of light. Canvas breathes out faint dust. The stitching is uneven. The red has rusted toward brown, and the pole sleeve is torn at the seam. I start with the largest clues and move inward. Size, fabric, thread count. The cloth is wartime cotton, coarse but strong. The weave confirms a production run from the mid-years of the conflict. That narrows factories in months. I turn to the pole sleeve. There is a block of ink, faint but present. Under the loop, the characters resolve. Not a name, not a slogan. A short code of letters and numbers, followed by a small circle stamp with a device that looks like a wheel. Ink has bled into the fibers, which means a porous pad and an unsealed stamp head. That is consistent with hurried field issuance rather than parade stock. I do not trust any single clue. I log the code in the worksheet and move on. The corner seam holds a second clue. There is a pencil scrawl trapped beneath the stitch line, just visible where the seam split. Pencil graphite does not lie if it has not been cleaned. I photograph it at a shallow angle, then mirror the image to make sense of the strokes. The scrawl is a 3-digit number, then a slash, then 2 letters. It matches the pattern on surviving quartermaster sheets from the same army, where depot and sub-depot identifiers follow shipment batches. Serial marks do not only tell origin, they describe a path. The circular stamp appears again near the edge, but this time with 2 partial numerals. I overlay both impressions in software and align the arcs of the circle. The numerals lock. 8 and 2. Now the code reads complete. I cross-reference it against a ledger of captured material compiled by an intelligence unit that photographed trophies as they were boxed for shipment. The ledger does not show every object, but the pattern of numbers is consistent with a June intake from a railway hub that changed hands in a 2-day battle. The paper trail is thin, so I test the cloth itself. Stitch length varies every 10 centimeters, which means a line worker changed machines mid-roll. That yields a factory candidate with 2 functioning lines in the period. I find a procurement form with the same wheel device stamped in the approval field. The wheel is not a wheel. It is a stylized gear used by one regional supplier. The supplier stamped completed orders, but also issued replacement pennants at the front. That explains the porous ink. I return to the pole sleeve tear. The tear is not accidental. Fibers are pulled one way only. Someone yanked the flag off the pole in a hurry. A broken wood sliver trapped in the seam carries varnish. Varnish composition points to a local workshop near the same railway hub. A photograph from the intake ledger shows a bundle of flags on a table, one with a torn sleeve and a varnished sliver still inside. The torn edge matches the angle of ours. The numbers, the stamps, the gear device, the varnish, the stitch cadence. Each thread confirms the others. The path sharpens. Factory to depot. Depot to garrison. Garrison to rail yard. Rail yard to capture point. Capture point to crate. Crate to ship. Ship to port. Port to attic. The flag on the table is no longer a mute relic. It is a document that speaks in codes and fibers. The story now has coordinates, dates, and a chain of custody strong enough to bear a name. We thought the flag would speak for itself. It did not. Its fabric was sun-bleached and stiff. The inked unit marks half-eaten by time. Our first match came from a hastily typed list in a regimental log. Same battalion, same sector, same week. We celebrated too soon. A closer look at the handwriting style on the hem showed a different quartermaster than the one serving that unit. The thread count was right, the story was wrong. We drove to a farm where a veteran once lived, following a rumor that he brought home a trophy from a blown rail yard. The barn was empty, the family long gone. In the dust, we found crates of rusted hinges and a postcard with a city name that had been renamed twice since the war. The lead felt warm for an hour. Then it went cold. Archival photos gave us a promising angle. A color shot showed a banner with the same diagonal stain. We zoomed in until the pixels broke apart. The stain turned out to be a shadow from a radio mast. We grew suspicious of easy overlaps. The shipping manifest from a port depot listed a package of captured insignia sent to a stateside museum. We called, wrote, waited. The manifest number was a transposition error. The crate had contained mess kits, not flags. A clerk apologized. We crossed another line from the board. A collector swore he had seen a twin to our flag at a flea market outside a garrison town. We found the seller. He unfolded a banner that looked close under weak light. In daylight, the weave and dye were modern. He shrugged and blamed memory. One witness insisted a sergeant stitched initials into the corner after a crossroads fight. The initials matched a casualty from the same day. It felt like progress. Under a microscope, the thread glowed synthetic. Post-war repair. The wound in the cloth had been mended by someone who wanted the flag to survive, not by the man who died carrying it. Hope turned into data, then into a note in the margin. At a small archive, an index card pointed us to a sealed envelope marked personal effects. The envelope held only a list of items destroyed due to contamination. Among them a flag, no dimensions given. Destruction is also a form of record. We returned to the field where the unit had broken contact. The map placed a supply truck here, a medic post there. The landscape had shifted under roads and drainage ditches, but the wind still came down the same valley. We laid the flag on the ground and traced its frayed edge to the contours of a drainage lip. The fit was nearly perfect. Nearly. False leads hurt, but they narrow the path. Each wrong badge, each misread stamp, each witness memory that bends with the years cuts away what the story is not. The noise recedes. The flag remains, not as a trophy, not as a talisman, but as an object that resists guesswork. The dead end is a wall until it becomes a signpost. We pack the flag, mark the map, and choose the next turn with quieter hands. The work continues. The truth is owed. The flag lies on the table under flat light. Cotton, faded dye, moth cuts along the hem. On the canvas bag, we found a pencil note with a date and a town. The artifact is silent, but it points in many directions. Before we move it, we ask the first question: who has the right to decide where it goes? A veteran brought it home as a trophy, recorded in a private diary, and wrapped away. His family kept it as an heirloom. The unit that fought under it lost men whose names live on in a registry. A museum can preserve it under climate control and give it context. The state that raised the unit may claim it as cultural property. No choice is clean. Every answer rewrites the past for someone. We map responsibility like a chain of custody. We test the story against documents. The shipping manifest lists an item described as captured flag. A photograph from the same week shows an identical tier pattern. Field orders confirm the unit number stenciled on the sleeve. With each link verified, ownership looks less like possession and more like stewardship. The artifact carries obligations. We contact the veteran family first. They did not take it to sell. They kept it because it was proof that a brutal mission had an end. They listen as we explain the unit match and the list of the fallen. Their home goes quiet. The family asks the necessary question: if this flag belonged to men who died, why is it in our living room? We reach the unit archives. Names, last letters, burial locations. The curator asks about conservation plans and public access. A historian cautions against removing all wartime trophies from the private sphere. Objects survive because people care for them. The task is to place them where they tell the most truth. We step back and test our motives. We are not judges. We are messengers. Our goal is to prevent the object from becoming a mute relic. It must be read. It must name the people connected to it. It must teach why the battle was fought and what it cost. The decision forms in stages. The family agrees to transfer the flag as a long-term loan to the unit museum, with a clause that the exhibit will identify the veteran who safeguarded it and the soldiers who served under it. The museum commits to publish the research, digitize the files, and notify the next of kin we have traced. On the day of the handover, we document everything. Condition images, accession forms, a clear note of provenance that includes uncertainty where uncertainty remains. The curator lifts the flag using gloves and a support board. There is no ceremony. There is procedure, and there is respect. Who owns memory? No single person does. Memory is a task that we perform together. The flag does not belong to a house or a vault. It belongs to the story that connects both. Today, that story becomes public, and the object finally does what it was made to do. It gathers people under one field of color and asks them to remember. Hold fast. Dust hangs over the work table. The flag lies flat, a rectangle of worn fabric, edges frayed by time and rain. Under raking light, the inked signatures wake up, strokes thick and thin, some steady, some broken by cold hands in a trench. There is no romance in this room, only procedure. I log the dimensions, the weave, the thread count. I map stains and tears like wounds on a human map. In the lower hem, I find a faint stamp, half crushed by a fold. I photograph it and pull the image onto the grid. Shrine seal, prefecture confirmed. The first axis is place. A column of names curves along the sun's circle. Many are common. One stands out. A family name paired with a rare given name used in one district only. I compare kanji forms with a handwriting atlas. The crossbar tilt, the pressure on the final stroke, the way a radical opens at the top. This is not an autograph wall. It is a roster. I tag the potential owner and mark every witness name that clusters around it. On paper, the next step seems simple. Link names to a field post number. In reality, field posts moved like smoke. I open wartime postal logs and trace the number inked near the hoist. It migrates from a training depot to an infantry regiment, then to a reinforced battalion sent to garrison an island that fell in late 1944. The manifest lists leave a thin trail. Replacement drafts, emergency transfers, missing bundles. I plot dates against the flag's material history. Sand abrasion matches a shoreline campaign. Salt marks line up with a monsoon month. A tear along the fly edge is aligned like a cut from shrapnel. Under magnification, fibers are fused and darkened. That is heat, not rot. I check action reports for indirect fire on the Unit's defensive line. One entry notes an enemy mortar strike that burned personal effects in a forward cave. The time window narrows. The probable owner became a casualty within 7 days of that event. The breakthrough waits in a place that looks too ordinary to matter. It is a school alumni newsletter from 1939, the last issue before call UPS emptied classrooms. A photo page lists graduates by class and village. There is the rare given name again, paired with the same family name, and a teacher's note about a scholarship student who excelled at calligraphy. I pulled a signature from the flag and compare letter order and brush rhythm with a certificate scan from the school archive. The proportions match within margins that suggest the same hand. It is not proof yet. It is a direction. I pivot to casualty rolls. The regiment's losses in that sector are recorded in batches. Among them is the same man, reported killed in action in November 1944, body not recovered, effects burned. A cross-match with municipal records confirms parents in the same district as the shrine seal. I find a younger sister listed in a 1947 food ration ledger, later married and relocated inland. The ledger gives a new family name. I follow it through residence registries until a living address appears. Before contact, I challenge the chain again. I bring in a forensic document examiner to blind test the handwriting. Independent agreement comes back with high likelihood of authorship. I compare fiber samples from the flag with a known period flag from the same supplier catalog. The warp and weft align. A veteran's recorded account mentions taking a flag from a cave fire on that island after the bombardment I already traced. His unit intersected with the same ridge where the regiment held. The trophy route closes. The case file is now a structure that can carry weight. Place, unit, event, name, hand, family. The fallen is no longer an entry on a roll. He is a student who wrote carefully, a son who carried blessings inked by neighbors, a soldier caught in a fire that left almost nothing. The flag remains. It is enough to go home. I stare at the cursor and read the family name again. The service number matches, the dates align, and the unit stamp on the flag is clear. Research ends where people begin. In my folder sit photographs of the artifact, a torn shipping tag, and a diary note about recovered personal effects. I write the email in plain language. I explain who I am, how the flag surfaced in a house clearance, and why the markings point to their relative. I attach a scan of the unit stamp and a cropped image of stitched initials that match the laundry mark in induction papers. I state there is no request and no pressure, only an offer to share evidence and listen. I remove every extra word and send it. There is silence for hours. When the reply arrives, it is brief and wary. Is this cruel? Is this real? I answer with dates and references and suggest a call at their convenience. The next afternoon, the line connects. He says he is the nephew. He asks how a battlefield flag ever left the field. I do not guess. I describe paths seen in other cases, from hurried collection points to confused quartermaster rooms. He asks what proves it belonged to his uncle. I cite the stitched initials, the matching laundry mark, and a supply form that lists his platoon and date. He is quiet for several seconds. When he returns, the voice is steady but lower. His mother kept a box of wartime letters. She has never opened it. He does not promise access. He agrees to receive a dossier and a chain of custody plan. He asks what I want. I say the goal is to correct the record and return an object that belongs with the family. A second call follows the next day. Two relatives join. They ask about authenticity protocols, handover logistics, and how to avoid attention. I outline a simple plan. We meet at a neutral site. A notary witnesses the handover. The flag is inspected with gloves, photographed, and wrapped in acid-free paper. No media. There is a pause. Then the nephew says his mother is ready to see the flag. She wants to hold it once before any decision is made. I confirm a time and ask if they want a conservator present. We agree on a quiet room at the library. I close the folder and feel the shift from documents to people. Research becomes contact, and contact becomes responsibility. I pack the courier box, check the forms, and write a final confirmation. Somewhere a family prepares to open a door that has been closed for 80 years. Soon they will hold proof, and history will breathe. The train pulls out before dawn. The flag rides in a flat archival box on my lap, wrapped in acid-free tissue, banded with cotton tape. I check the paperwork again. Chain of custody forms. Export clearance. A letter from the museum that verified the unit markings. Everything is in order, but my hands stay tight on the box. Outside the window, fields smear into gray. Inside, the carriage hums. Each vibration reminds me that the cloth inside has moved across continents once before, under very different conditions. At the airport, I choose the slow lane. Manual inspection only. I open the box and lift the tissue just enough for the officer to see the faded stitches. He nods and waves me through. I do not let the box out of sight. No overhead bins. No checked luggage. When the plane lifts, the pressure change thumps in my ears. I keep breathing, counting seconds until the seat belt sign goes dark. During the flight, I review the route to the village. A local contact has sent coordinates, a modest house on the edge of a ridge. The family asked for no filming inside. We agreed to record B-roll outside and capture audio after. The story is not about me. It is about a name that was missing from a flag and a family that carried an empty space for decades. We land in a hard rain. I sign the last receipt at customs and step into a narrow rental car. The box goes across the back seat, strapped like a passenger. The wipers fight the downpour. The road climbs into low mountains where the clouds sit on the shoulders of the trees. I pass a monument at a crossroads, a list of names in stone, water running down the letters. I pull over for a moment. The dates match the unit in my file. I keep moving. By late afternoon, the rain breaks. The village appears in segments: a schoolyard, a shuttered shop, a square with a war memorial that has a free space at the bottom. The house is 3 turns past the church. A gate opens before I reach it. 2 generations wait under the eaves. No one speaks at first. We shake hands. I hold the box with both arms and follow them inside. The table is cleared. A cloth is laid down. I set the box in the center and undo the tape. The tissue rustles. The flag unfolds in careful halves and then in quarters. The room is very still. The unit markings are there. The repaired tier across the corner is there. The family matriarch touches the table, not the flag, and inhales through her nose. The sun points toward a framed photograph on the wall. The same unit patch. The same year. I read the summary of our research. Field recovery. Catalog tag. Misfiled crate. Rediscovery during a storage audit. Cross-check with letters and shipping manifests. Request for return approved. They listen without interruption. When I finish, the matriarch nods once. She reaches for the corners. We lift together and lay the flag over a prepared frame. The fabric settles, and the room exhales. Outside, the sky opens to a thin band of light. We walk to the square in silence, carrying the framed flag between us. Villagers join without being asked. The memorial stands waiting. The free space at the bottom is not free anymore. We slide the frame into place. A name is spoken, once, clearly. There is no applause. There is only air and the sound of shoes on wet stone. The history in my hands is no longer mine. It is home. The hall is small, municipal, all hard edges and cold light. The flag rests in a neutral case on a table covered with plain canvas. No display boards. No fanfare. 2 chairs face each other with a narrow aisle between them. The air smells like floor polish and damp coats. Outside, rain needles the windows. Inside, time feels tight, like a strap drawn across a chest. The researcher stands first, shoulders set, voice steady. He explains the chain of custody, the battlefield pickup, the shipping tag from a depot, the attic where it slept for decades. He lays out the verification steps, the unit stencil matched to a roster, the faded ink corroborated by a quartermaster manifest, the photo of a flagpole stripped during withdrawal. He speaks in short sentences. Facts only. Across from him, the family listens. A mother with careful hands. A brother who never met the fallen man, he carries the look of him anyway. A daughter with a folder of clippings and a single school portrait printed too dark. They nod in fragments, absorbing each piece like a slow drip of cold water. The case clicks open. The cloth is heavier than expected. It has that stored smell: dust, old oil, cedar from a box meant for winter coats. The fabric shows stress points along the hem. There are repairs, field crude but competent. A corner bears the blunt shadow where a finial once pressed. Thread patterns match the template gathered from records. The researcher does not raise the flag. He does not stage it. He keeps it waist high, both hands supporting, edges folded inward, insignia visible enough to confirm identity, but not enough to turn the table into a pedestal. He names the place where it was taken. He names the names that were there. He says the date. He stops. The mother steps forward. She touches only the canvas cover. Her breath hitches, then steadies. The brother reaches for the manifest photocopy first, not the artifact, as if to brace himself with paper. The daughter watches the stitching. Her eyes track the repair thread. It tells a quieter story than any ceremony could. Silence spreads. No background music. Only rain at the windows and the scrape of a chair leg as a custodian passes in the corridor. The researcher asks if they are ready. They nod. He places the flag in the mother's hands, then withdraws, palms open, showing there is nothing left to keep. A minute passes. The family adjusts their grip until it is balanced among the three of them. Shoulders angle inward. The weight distributes. The room settles. The daughter breaks the stillness. She says they will house it in the Veterans Hall first, then bring it home on the anniversary of the last letter. She says they will invite the unit association. She says the name again, clear. The researcher adds one final, note the path of the flag ends here. He signs the release form and leaves it on the table. The case remains open. The family does not close it. They cross the aisle together. The rain slows. A thin beam of late light finds the cloth and holds. The house is quiet after the handover. The flag lies on the kitchen table like a report. It is heavier than expected, harsh wool that holds the shape of decades. A handwritten inventory number sits near the seam, faint but still legible. Nobody rushes to frame it. Nobody rushes to pray. The room works the way rooms do after long news. Chairs scrape. A kettle breathes. Someone opens a window, then shuts it. The daughter spreads the fabric with careful hands. She does not hunt for glory. She is trying to read it as evidence. There are sun-bleached angles where it once hung in the open, stains near a corner that are not dramatic enough to be the story and are therefore more convincing. A cousin takes out a notebook. He lists what they can prove and what they cannot. He writes the unit markings, the field postcode, the date from the shipping manifest that surfaced in the archive. He says the only thing he can. They call the local historian because he knows how to talk about hard facts around the soft edges of grief. He arrives with a scanner and a cloth mask. He says the wool should rest flat for a week. He explains the resin in old threads. He does not promise closure. He promises documentation. That promise feels like oxygen. The family makes copies of letters that the soldier once sent home. The handwriting is steady until it is not. They stack the pages beside the flag without touching the two together. The gap between paper and cloth stands for the gap between intention and outcome. A neighbor comes by with a tray and an unasked question. What now? The father answers with tasks. Photograph every mark. Verify the stamp. Contact the regiment association. He assigns call times and a shared folder. People move. Action clears the fog better than condolences. It rains in the afternoon. The roof ticks. The flag drinks the room and the room changes. The daughter feels a shift that is not relief and not pain. It is alignment. The family did not gain a relic. They gained a fixed point on the map of what happened and when. With that point, other facts will stop drifting. By evening, the flag is folded again, not as a symbol, but as evidence under care. Tomorrow, the historian will log the scans, and the family will send the first email to a son who never met his grandfather. The message is simple. We found enough to stand on. From here, we will proceed with both hands open and our eyes on the record. We go on. We go on. The first shell lands before anyone breathes. A flat punch in the earth, a slap of air across the face, gravel ticking against helmets. The team freezes for a half second, then the calm voice in the observation post starts the count. 1 Mississippi. 2. The next impact walks closer. Time stretches, and with it comes the pattern. That is the hook, not the blast. The rhythm. The mortar is speaking, and we have to learn its language before it writes our names into the ground. We are set low in a shallow scrape at the edge of the tree line. Branches knit a dark ceiling. The world beyond is a sheet of pale fields broken by hedges and a thread of road. The assistant observer steadies the binoculars, elbows braced, while I press a knuckle into the map, feeling the paper snag on calluses. Wind is from the west, light. Air is cool, sound carries. Every detail matters because sound is our wire back to the hidden crew. A mortarman somewhere out there works a tube with metronomic focus. We never see him. We hear his work. A muted thump, delicate as a heartbeat. A whisper of flight that seems to curl around the trees. Then the arrival, hard and decisive, dirt in the mouth, a ringing pause. The interval between thump and impact gives us range. The contrast in loudness between left ear and right gives us bearing. We are building a fix out of pressure waves and nerve. The next round clips a wall to our front and peppers the ditch. The observer calls bearing. I repeat it. The assistant runs the pencil along the protractor, snaps a line across the grid. I mark the estimate of distance and cut a second line from a fallback listening point we used at first light. Where the lines cross is not a certainty, it is a suspicion with edges. But suspicion can be enough to move steel. Another thump. The team leans into the hush between cause and effect. For seconds. 5. Impact short and right. The crew is adjusting. The pattern is a ladder. They climb 2 rungs, pause, and correct for wind. I picture the circular baseplate sinking into soil, the sight level, the loader with sleeves rolled above strong wrists. I do not hate them. I simply need to end their work. We call a quick shift of our own, sliding 3 body lengths to a secondary pit. Fresh angles, cleaner audio. The assistant swaps binoculars for the old rangefinder. Glass and brass, heavy and honest. He reads numbers without tremor. I push them into the map. The spot tightens. Fire mission ready. Not yet. 2 more data points. The next shell slams into the hedgerow and coughs smoke. The sound arrives sharp, almost metallic off the stones, telling us the path has bent. I adjust the bearing 3 degrees. Now the crossing of lines sits on a copse near the road kink. That kink is gold. It cannot be anywhere else. We key the net and pass the coordinates, methodical and cold, words marching like drill. Batteries reply. Stand by. Eyes back to the tree line. The mortar speaks again. We answer with silence, counting, measuring, learning its last whisper before our own voice arrives. And when our guns finally speak, the sound is vast and rolling, a tide that lifts the earth, and the map in my hands feels suddenly very light. The first impact arrives like a hammer on wet earth. A dull thud, a slap of fragments, a breath of dust. The team does not flinch. They lock into the chain. The observer drops to a knee and calls the time of impact, bearing to smoke, an estimated distance from sound lag. The recorder repeats each element, loud and steady, so that stress cannot blur the numbers. The section leader draws a quick cross on the map, 1 line for the observed bearing, 1 for the wind, then marks the likely fan of fire. The second round lands farther down the hedgerow. Pattern recognized. A walk of fire. The mortar crew is correcting. That means they are still in place. That means there is a window. The tree line looks calm from a distance, but the field tells another story. Leaves drift the wrong way. A bird flushes late. The team notes these small betrayals. The observer sweeps with vintage optics, glass that bites into the light and shows the shimmer of heat. A crease in the grass. A man in a crouch. Nothing more. Time from first impact is under 90 seconds. Math takes over. Bearing from the main observation post is entered. A second observer on the ridge transmits his own bearing. 2 lines meet and a grid square is born. Range is guessed from terrain features. The section leader chooses a point 10 meters behind the suspected pit to account for habitual underestimation. He shapes an initial fire mission in his head before he speaks, because extra words cost seconds and seconds cost blood. Radios wake. Fire control receives target data and reads it back. The gun line is already aligned from previous tasks, so only minor shifts are needed. The team hears the distant cough of their own tubes. Friendly rounds are in flight. The leader orders the team to stay low. The enemy will hear the outgoing ripple and may displace. The observer watches for the twitch in the hedgerow that gives away a crew that wants to run and cannot decide which way. Friendly rounds arrive. The first impact stamps the far edge of the grid square. Short adjust, left 2-0. The order rides the net without drama. The second salvo catches the hedgerow and throws a sheet of leaves. The observer sees 1 figure fall and another drag a tube by the baseplate. Add 1-0, fire for effect. The guns answer with a full package. The hedgerow vanishes under a chain of blasts. Dust lifts and hangs. The enemy crew tries to crawl out along a shallow ditch, but the steel arrives ahead of them. The pattern tightens. The mortar tube lies on its side. The firing stops. Silence returns slowly, as if it must push through the ringing in every year. The observer holds the glass steady for 1 full minute. No movement. Fire control requests assessment. The leader reports likely neutralization, damage to crew and equipment, area unsafe for further movement. He marks the position with a black cross and a timestamp. The team packs gear with deliberate hands. The chain holds until the very last entry is logged. A new task may come within the hour. The next hunt may begin with the same dull thud on wet earth. The team will not be surprised. They know how the chain begins, and they know how to end it. The patrol halts at the edge of the field where the grass gives way to a ragged wall of birch and pine. The mortar crew is out there somewhere, trading distance for cover, waiting for another chance to walk rounds onto the road. To find them, the team must first disappear. The leader kneels and studies the ground. No skyline exposure. No brittle twigs. No bright soil kicked up by boots. He traces the sun's path in his head and watches the wind push the leaves. The observation post must see without being seen, hear without being heard, and survive the first mistake. They crawl in on wrists and knees, bodies flattened, gear wrapped in dull cloth. Faces are broken up with ash and mud. Helmets carry brush from this exact stand of trees. No shape is allowed to be a circle, a straight line, or a clean edge. The camouflage is not a costume. It is an argument with the brain of the enemy spotter who hunts for patterns. The team intends to win that argument. A low mound under a deadfall becomes the hide. One person cuts a narrow firing slit through grass with a knife, not scissors, so the ends stay ragged. Another presses a ground sheet into the soil until it matches the color and shine. The tripod for the glass goes in last, legs wrapped, feet buried so metal never flashes. The field of view is drawn on a range card. Near hedge, broken stump, roof line beyond the mill. Each is given a number, a distance, a bearing. Silence is built, not found. Radios are checked on vibrate alerts only. The antenna is bent along a sapling and painted with dirt. The spotter wipes the lens and breathes on it once to fog the glass, then cleans it again. He waits for the forest to settle, for bird calls to return, for the insects to resume their work. Only then does he begin to scan. He does not sweep. He breaks the tree line into small windows and lets each window come to him. Shadows that move with the wind are ignored. Shadows that move against the wind are memorized. A branch that bounces twice after a gust is a clue. A puff of dust where there is no path is a clue. He times the drift of smoke from a farmhouse chimney and uses it as a clock for the air. The team builds the triangle. One observer measures bearing from the road marker. Another measures from the hay shed. The leader marks both lines on the map with a grease pencil, hands steady, breath slow. Where the lines meet is suspicion. Where suspicion repeats is a target. A crow lifts from the trees. 2 beats later, a dull thump rolls across the valley. The spotter does not flinch. He watches the tree line and the gaps between tree trunks. He waits for a flicker of heat haze, for the faint gray ribbon of propellant smoke slipping upward where the canopy thins. He counts the seconds to impact and notes the arc of the incoming. The mortar speaks, and the forest answers. The observation post is now alive. The camouflage has done its work. The hunt is underway. The first round arrives like a fist through the air. A dull thump rolls across the tree line, then a rising howl as the shell cuts the distance. The crew freezes only for a heartbeat. Helmets tip, mouths open, ears searching. The world narrows to the calculus of survival. Impact. Soil leaps. A flat crack slaps the chest, followed by a pressure that crawls into the teeth. The shock line tells more than fear. If the slap is sharp and dry, the fall angle is steep and the tube is close. If the blast is round and heavy, the arc was long and the team is further back. The mind starts the clock without words. Count the seconds between arrival sound and burst. Convert distance by habit. The map opens on a knee. Smoke drifts in 2 colors. The white-gray pillar marks the burst point and the wind. The darker ring clings to the ground, curling along the micro ridges of the field. If the smoke column bends hard left, the wind is set that way, and the enemy mortar is correcting right now to chase the adjustment. The observer notes spread and symmetry. A tight, circular dust halo means near-perfect fuse timing. A sloppy crescent means a graze. Both are clues to range and fuse discipline. Fragments begin to fall with a metallic hiss. Their spread sketches the angle of descent. Long, shallow arcs scatter fragments forward. Steep plunges send them in near circles. A trained ear sorts the music of steel. Thick chunks that thud into wet ground suggest larger caliber. High-pitched sleet suggests light bombs and thin casings. Each sound adds weight to the plot on paper. The team reads the trees like an instrument. Leaves show the wind at different layers. Smoke at knee height points one way, the top branches another. The enemy crew is doing the same math across the field, working a bracket, walking rounds onto a road or a hedgerow. The observers must steal time. One begins a quick back azimuth from the shock front. Another watches the smoke rise and times the rate of climb to estimate air stability. A third checks the soil grain at the crater edge, looking for the fan that points back along the trajectory. The second round lands short. Good. That means the first was long, and the crew is bracketing. The tempo of the hunt is visible now. 10, 12, 14 seconds between firing and burst. That cadence suggests a well-drilled team and a tube that is already sandbagged into place. The observers translate seconds into meters and meters into a bearing. A finger traces contour lines toward a fold in the ground that hides both muzzle flash and movement. There is no romance here, only discipline. Here, measure, mark. The first impact is not chaos. It is a message in pressure, dust, and smoke. Decode it fast, or the next line of punctuation will be written in blood. The first blast folds the tree lean into a ripple of dust and bark. Our stopwatch starts. The speed of sound turns into a ruler in the air. 1 second, maybe a little more. That delay is range, not guessed, but measured. My compass settles. The needle shakes, then calms. I call the bearing to the plume. 2 observers to my left and right do the same. 3 thin lines are about to become a point. We breathe in short counts. Wind presses smoke into a low sheet. A second round lands, 50 meters short of the first. The mortar crew is adjusting. Their rhythm is our doorway. I plant the map board on my knee, pencil like a metronome. From my position, I draw a line along the bearing. From the second observation post, a line of its bearing. From the third, another. Where the lines cross is not a theory. It is a place with trees and roots and men who believe they are unseen. Range comes from the sound lag and from the scale of the map. Bearings come from compass, from sighting along a finger that does not shake. Fix comes from 3 lines that choose each other. I speak the grid. It is clean, whole numbers, no guesswork. Correct for declination, correct for parallax, correct for the small pride that wants to round in your favor. The enemy does not care about your pride. The enemy cares about whether you are fast. A third impact walks the pattern forward. The crew is bracketing. They have found something they want to hit. I adjust for wind. The smoke is moving left to right. The plume leans. I shave a few mils off the bearing. The nearest observer confirms. The far observer reports a slightly different angle. I average with purpose, not with hope. The triangle tightens. The pencil digs into damp paper. I mark likely dead ground where a base plate would hide. Mortars love shallow reverse slopes, tree clusters with narrow clearings, drainage lines that are hard to see from above. I circle 2 micro-locations inside the fix. The stopwatch runs again. Time between shots lengthens. They are packing or they are cooling. Either way, it is our turn. Fire mission request goes up the net. I keep my voice steady. The battery will be fast if we are exact. I pass grid, target description, method of engagement, method of fire, and control. First salvo inbound. We count. We listen. The air delivers an answer that no one can mistake. The correction is small. Left by 1, add by 50. The next salvo arrives like a door slamming shut on a dark room. Silence returns in uneven pieces. Birds start before men do. I log the final grid and the time. Bearing, range, fix. 3 words that turn chaos into coordinates, and coordinates into a place that will no longer throw steel at strangers. The observation post wakes with cold glass against the eye. The world is a lattice of reticles, mill marks, and smudges of smoke that bloom and fade above the tree line. The first impact lands short, a dull thud carried by the wind, and the second lands closer. The team speaks in clipped sequence, one calling mills on the binocular reticle, one reading compass bearings, one sketching lines on a grid map board taped to a crate. The old optics force discipline. No stabilization, no digital zoom, only steady hands and a steady mind. A bearing is locked. Range is estimated by vertical mills against a known height in the tree lean. The spotter breathes, counts, and converts mils to meters with a pencil chart laminated years ago. The map man drags a grease pencil across paper that already carries a history of smears. A thin line marches from the observation post across contour lines to a possible firing pit. The third impact lands, and dust drifts like ash. Now the pattern speaks. The rounds walk left to right. The observer shifts to a second vintage glass, a scuffed artillery scope with a worn spirit level, and confirms the lay of the ground. Modern tech hums beside the crate. A rugged tablet wakes to a blue grid and satellite imagery. The position of the observation post snaps to a precise coordinate. The tiny white roads, the hedgerows, the irrigation ditches, all sit beneath a transparent layer of military grid reference. The grease pencil line is mirrored by a digital bearing. The tablet calculates an intersection with a second line derived from the mil range. Two worlds overlap. The pencil gives intuition. The tablet gives certainty. The wind changes, and the sound arrives later. The team adjusts the speed of sound table for current temperature. The time between muzzle report and impact is measured on a wrist chronograph, then fed into the range estimate as a cross-check. The tablet accepts the value and tightens the confidence ring from a field to a thicket. The vintage scope rides the edge of the treeline. A brief flicker of heat ripple betrays a disturbed patch of grass. The optic does not care about pixels. It cares about pattern and habit and the way crews hide where they should not. A correction is made. The grid reference is read aloud once, then again. The fire mission sheet is filled with block letters. The old and the new agree within a handful of meters. That is enough. The call goes out with deliberate cadence. Metal answers the math. The counter battery arc climbs and disappears. The team stays on glass. The first splash shreds the far hedge. The tablet redraws the circle smaller. The second splash silences the sound between impacts. The third brings stillness that feels wrong after so much counting. The pencil line is underlined. The tablet record is saved. The crew erases nothing. The lesson remains on paper and in memory. Glass teaches patience. Grids deliver proof. Together they shorten the time between a whisper in the trees and the moment the trees go quiet. The first impact is never alone. A second follows, then a third, each one stepping across the ground like boots on a ladder. The pattern is a voice. It tells who is shooting, how they are trained, how many tubes are in the line, and how well their leader controls the fire. Listen to the interval. 4 to 6 seconds between impacts suggests one crew working a single tube at a steady rhythm. A shorter, uneven interval hints at 2 tubes alternating, one loading while the other fires. Long pauses mean corrections, coolant time for a hot barrel, or a search for a new target. Watch the geometry. A straight line that advances or falls back is classic walking fire. Elevation nudged in small increments to feel for range. A lateral sweep left to right is traverse, the crew chasing movement or raking a trench. A tight cluster that tightens further means the bipod is biting, the base plate is seated, and the gunner has settled. A loose cross or box pattern signals haste, inexperience, or soft ground under the plate. Precision speaks of drills done many times in the dark. Crater signatures add detail. Elongated lips point back toward the firing azimuth, giving a rough back bearing when compasses and radios are silent. Depth and spall tell the caliber. Shallow bowls and light fragmentation whisper of small bombs. Deep cones and heavy shards announce a heavier tube with plenty of charge increments. Fuse action matters. Many airbursts over one lane suggest a pre-planned setting. A sudden switch to point detonation means the crew reacted to foliage or hard cover. Count the total rounds in a minute. A disciplined crew with one tube can hold 8 to 12 when fresh and calm. A flurry that peaks then fades may mean the ammunition number is running hard or the smoke man is winded. A pause exactly at the 10th round may reveal a leader who checks corrections at fixed counts. If the pattern shifts after every 5th impact, the fire controller is bracketing by rule. Now stitch the clues together. 2 alternating intervals, a steady lateral sweep, a base plate that firms up after the 6th round, and a correction pause at 10. That is likely a 2-tube section with a competent leader, decent training, and a fixed fire plan. The sweep bounds match 50-meter ticks on the map grid. The final cluster hugs a hedgerow where a trail meets a field. That is a likely hide and a likely exit. This is how patterns turn into people. A rhythm becomes a gunner with burned hands. A pause becomes a leader with a greased pencil over a damp map. A lateral sweep becomes a section digging a pit beside a cart track. Read the rounds, and a crew stops being smoke and echo. It becomes a target you can find. The first round is the mask. Dirt lifts, leaves tremble, and the shock ripples through the treeline. Before the echo fades, the crew is already working. One man drags the ammunition crate closer. One steadies the bipod. The gunner checks elevation and deflection with deliberate hands. They came in silent. They must leave the same way. Speed is survival. A mortar that lingers becomes a beacon. The crew fires a short, ruthless sequence. 2 or 3 for adjustment. 3 to 5 for effect. Each tube sings for seconds, not minutes. The assistant gunner rides the recoil, keeping the baseplate seated. The loader counts breath and rhythm so that each round leaves at the same interval. The gunner watches the sight bubble and the aiming stakes. Small corrections only. Precision that fits inside the span of a heartbeat. They do not chase perfection. They chase time. Counter-battery teams listen and measure. The clock starts with the first impact. Sound ranging, flash spotting, and experience narrow the grid with every shot. The longer the crew stays, the tighter the noose becomes. So the section leader calls last round early. The tube cools. The forest exhales. Hands move to carry positions. Displacement is a drill. The sight comes off. The bipod folds. The baseplate heaves free of the ground with a wet crack. Every man knows the order of movement. Ammunition first, then the tube, then the rest. They do not speak. They do not leave a trail if they can help it. Shell casings and packing are pocketed. Footprints are brushed. The new position is already chosen. 50 to 100 meters is often enough. Sometimes more. Always irregular. Never predictable. The next hide favors cover and a clean backblast area. Overhead branches. Shadow over silhouette. A lane to withdraw if needed. The gunner resets stakes and checks the compass. He confirms bearing to the known reference. The leader cross-checks with a grease pencil on a laminated sketch. The loader opens a single crate, not 3. Less noise. Less shine. Always less. A new burst begins. Short again. Fast again. The pattern appears random to a distant ear, but it is planned. The crew alternates between positions that complement each other. One is slightly higher for better arcs. One is deeper for better concealment. Each is prepared with shallow scrapes for the plate and marks for the bipod feet. The tube returns to a known 0 in seconds. When the enemy finally answers, the rounds walk through the trees the crew has already left. Branches snap. Soil erupts. The air tastes metallic. The team is moving to the next point, bent under the weight of steel and fatigue. Their safety is not luck. It is discipline. It is rehearsed movement, controlled fire, and the humility to leave before pride demands one more shot. The first impact leaves a shallow crater in the orchard and a deep cavity in every chest. Dirt settles. Leaves drift down like ash. The observer steadies the glass and forces his breathing to match the beat of the second hand. Bearing locked. Range estimated. A fix is drawn across the map with pencil and a gloved thumb. The crew in the trees will fire again. They always do. Precision begins with calm. He keys the handset and delivers a clean, methodical call for fire. Grid to the nearest meter. Target type. Mortar section with probable 2 tubes. Shell high explosive. Fuse quick. Adjust fire. The words move from observation post to fire direction center, where a quiet room brightens with purpose. Slide rules. Tables. A practiced rhythm. The battery commander gives a single nod. Guns prepare to speak. Data rides the wire to the gun line. Elevation. Deflection. Powder charge. Quadrant. Time of flight. Sections move like a drill that has become instinct. Breeches open. Charges seat. Rounds are indexed. The sky and the soil hold their breath. Steel goes up with a cough that becomes a promise. The observer watches the far hedgerow. Time stretches thin. A puff in the canopy. He reads the burst and the wind in a single glance. Over. Left. Correct by hundreds, not thousands. He keeps his voice steady and his words exact. Add 200. Right 30. Same fuse. Same shell. Fire when ready. The second volley lands tight to the stump line. Bark spins in the air. Figures scatter. The enemy crew breaks cover and sprints toward a shallow dip in the field. The observer captures the movement on the map and translates motion into math. Drop 100. Left 10. Battery 1 round. The order moves. The guns reply. Shrapnel combs the dip. The observer sees a tube collapse, then a man dragging another by the webbing. The mortar position breathes panic. He does not. He changes method. Fire for effect. Battery 6. The FDC confirms. Green lights ripple along the guns. The horizon becomes a strobe of white impacts that erase the trillion one square at a time. Silence returns in fragments. A delayed detonation thumps from deep earth. Then only crows. The observer studies the target area and the pattern of blackened soil. No fresh movement. No new smoke. He calls the battle damage assessment with the same steady cadence. 1 tube destroyed. 1 tube abandoned. Crew suppressed. Secondary explosion observed. He signs the map, folds it along the creases, and sets it beside the range card. The handset rests on his knee. Precision is not a trick. It is discipline measured in seconds and meters. It is the chain that runs from a calm voice on a cold hill to hot barrels on a distant ridge. When the call is clean, the steel lands true. And when the steel lands true, men on the line live to see the next morning. The first impact lands short of the road, a hard thud that lifts dust and light debris into a slow-motion cloud. It is not the closest round of the night, but it is the loudest because everyone now understands the geometry. The enemy mortar is feeling for the seam where our lines brush against the edge of the village. The village is not empty. Curtains hang in windows. A bicycle leans against a fence. Somewhere a dog will not stop barking. Every decision from this moment must balance two fires, ours and theirs, with civilians standing between. The observer steadies the glass on a fence post and counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. The smoke column pauses, twists, and thins. The echo rolls back through the trees. Time between impacts gives a rough range. Bearing is already marked with a grease pencil on the map board. He calls the grid with a flat voice that refuses drama. The fire direction center copies and does the math. A new line of drift appears across the paper, bending toward a stand of reeds along the creek. The next round drops deeper into the village. Shutters leap, a door swings, a figure runs. The observer swallows the spike of fear and adds 2 more elements to the problem. Wind pushing from the west. Rooflines that will channel fragments like alleyways of steel. He asks for a shift that will keep our fire inside a narrow cone. He repeats the rules of engagement. He speaks each word clearly. He accepts the weight. Gunners load with hands that no longer shake. The tube speaks, a single deliberate shot that must warn and wound without killing the people we are here to protect. Everyone on the net holds breath. The round breaks in a fallow field beyond the creek, a clean splash of soil. The enemy crew hesitates. The hesitation is the opening. The mortar coughs again. The observer hears the launch in the distance, a hollow pop carried on the wind. He traces the arc with the mind's eye, not with hope, but with angles. He shifts 100 meters left, short by 50, deflection -2. He asks for air burst with the lowest possible height of function to cut the enemy crew without throwing steel into the homes. He repeats the civilian warning. He repeats the friendly's mark. He repeats the danger close. Our round arrives like a hammer wrapped in rain. It bursts above the reeds. There is motion, then less motion. The enemy replies with a final shot that lands in the road, a scream of shrapnel that the camera does not glamorize. Dust settles. Voices rise from the village. A child cries. A man shouts a name. The observer lowers the glass. He reads the street like a ledger. No fire. No collapse. Movement at the creek. He requests ceasefire and a quick assessment patrol with medics at the edge of the houses. The radio crackles. Approval comes. The team moves, slow and careful, rifles low. The camera stays back, watching the space between choices. By dawn, the village is quiet. The bicycle is still there. The dog is finally silent. The reeds along the creek hold the imprint of the enemy position, a scatter of casings, a shallow pit, a burnt cloth. The lesson is written in the ground. Precision is not a boast. Precision is a duty when friend and stranger live under the same arc of steel. The barrage fades. Air settles into a heavy stillness that feels louder than impact. The team moves at a deliberate pace, boots testing the ground where fragments still hiss. First rule of battle damage assessment. Do not become the second wave of casualties. The section lead halts them at the tree line, sets outer security, and opens the notebook that survived the barrage inside a plastic sleeve. They start with craters. Fresh earth is pale and damp, lips kicked high toward the direction of travel. The assessor measures blast radius, counts shrapnel bites on trunks, and notes asymmetry. A shallow skim with a trowel finds fins and coppering that match known mortar types. A fragment serial groove spacing narrows the caliber. The ground tells a story. Entry angle, propellant energy, pattern density. It points back to the firing point like a finger through smoke. Next is the human terrain. A farmhouse window is gone, but the walls are standing. A stray cow lies in the ditch, still. A boy's bicycle is upright under a shed roof dusted in ash. The camera records everything. Civilian damage gets its own grid, its own photographs, its own line in the log. The team tags a safe lane for the medic to sweep for survivors and for unexploded ordnance that often sleeps shallow after soft ground impacts. Comms replay the fire mission. Time of call. Corrections transmitted. Gun line response. Shell flight times match the impact spread to within a breath. A single round landed short of the intended box. The map receives a small black cross. No friendly position sat within that square, but the reminder lands heavier than steel. Margins are thin in woods where sound rolls and bearings drift. Back at the gun positions, the earth shows their rush. Baseplate scars. 2 drag lines toward a cart path. Spent charge bags buried in a shallow pit. The team plots the grid and estimates how long the enemy stayed based on heat fading from a discarded tube clamp. A drone passes low and slow. It catches wool tracks that cut north into a thicket where a small creek can hide sound and heat. Numbers gather like rain. Crater count. Fragment density per square meter. Mean point of impact. Deviation from aim. A quick model predicts probable crew skill and rate of fire. The picture hardens. A 3-man team. 2 firing pauses. 1 displacement after counterfire began. They will likely return within the night if they think the lane is still open. Lessons begin as a checklist, not a sermon. Observation post was 10 meters 2 exposed to a dead ground that masked 1 lane of approach. Sound ranging arrays need recalibration after the storm that rattled the stakes loose. The map board will get a boulder symbol for civilian clusters, so the eye cannot skip it under stress. The call for fire script will include a mandatory confirm of danger close even when fatigue hangs on the tongue. Night drifts in. The forest exhales. The team tapes over glint on buckles and trims the lane with quiet hands. Reports travel back along the wire. A mortar hunt is a cycle, not an event. Silence is not safety. Silence is the space in which the next decision is made and the next correction saves a life. Dawn leaks into the tree line like a slow flare. The ground is colder now, harder, scored with fresh craters and torn roots. The first task is simple and brutal. Count who is standing, who is silent, who might still answer. Medics move first, heads low, marking casings with tape, checking for unexploded ordnance that could turn a rescue into a funeral. The smell is cordite, wet soil, oil. Every breath tastes like metal. The line reformulates itself under the pale light. Range cards are updated with shaky pencils. New sectors of fire are assigned. The squad leaders speak in low, even tones, not to soothe but to stabilize. No one wastes words. Radios crackle with clipped reports. Grid squares, crater diameters, probable tube caliber, charge estimates. The hunt of the night is reduced to data points on a damp map board. Engineers step into the holes like surveyors of a ruined city. Crater analysis yields direction and elevation. Shallow lips suggest low charge. Eccentric spall marks hint at a canted baseplate. A shard of fin is bagged, labeled, logged. The map gains arrows that point back through the woods to where the mortar crew likely fled, dragging their tube toward another patch of cover. The guns are quiet for now, and that quiet is louder than the night. It lets in everything that was pushed aside. Fear, anger, the throb in the wrist, bruised by recoil. The medic's shirt stiff with drying blood. A private stares at a shattered canteen and recalculates the distance he crawled in the dark, measuring survival in yards. Command wants proof that the counterfire mattered. Battle damage assessment goes out in a flat voice. 1 firing point suppressed, 1 bunker scorched, 2 heat signatures fading on the thermal drone. Not victory, not safety. A marginal shift, barely visible, yet real enough to move a line on the map by the width of a finger. By full morning, the ritual is complete. Weapons cleaned, antennas retuned. OP shifted 30 meters to a knoll with better defilade. The lesson is written in the ground itself. They learn where sound pools, where smoke clings, where a false shadow can be a sightline trap. The day will conceal the next ambush differently than the night. The mortar crew will change their rhythm. So will the hunters. The line holds, altered, tightened, alive. White presses in from every side. Wind scrapes the ridge clean and leaves a skin of ice on the world. At minus 15 degrees Celsius, the air bites faster than a blade. Breath blooms, hangs, hardens. Eyelashes lock together. Fabric stiffens. Every step sounds too loud on granular snow, a crunch that feels like a flare. Hands lose the fight first. Fingers swell, then dim. The mind says load, adjust, check, but the joints turn stubborn and wooden. Fine tasks crawl. A canteen cap refuses to turn. A buckle jams. The trigger guard feels like a trap of iron. Skin kisses metal and tries to stay there. The squad halts in a shallow fold in the ground. The map is a board. Corners crack when bent. Pencil lead shatters. The compass needle shivers, less from magnetism than from the tremor in cold wrists. Words are hard to form. The jaw aches. Even silence has weight. Cold does not shout. It drains. Calories leak into the wind. A fit body becomes a slow fire that will not catch. Vision tunnels. Judgment narrows. Routes that looked safe in daylight turn treacherous under blown spindrift. A creak that seemed solid size under a boot and groans awake. Metal turns against its owners. Oil thickens into glue. Bolts drag. Springs feel brittle, as if a single cycle could snap them. A sight window fogs, clears, fogs again, never truly clean. The more a hand tries to wipe it, the more ice paints its edge. Batteries die without a sound. The radio that worked at the trailhead now croaks once and falls quiet. The backup set is no better. Thumb turns a dial that does not answer. The antenna is a frozen whip that transmits nothing but cold. Someone tries a fire. Gloves come off. Dexterity is gone. Matches stick. A spark lands, then smothers. The wind rolls in low, steady, uncaring. The squad builds a wall of packs. The wall fails. The second spark holds, a tiny orange eye that begs for breath. Feed it too hard, and it dies. Feed it too slow, and it starves. Patience wrestles with pain. Time stretches. Minutes feel like a march. Feet throb in waves that mean danger. Toes numb, then burn, then go quiet again. Quiet is not mercy. Quiet is the cold finishing its work. Movement returns only in discipline. Rotate tasks. Stamp, flex, breathe. Layer and relayer. Share heat. Share calories. No heroics. Only procedures that look dull and save lives. Check partners for waxy skin and glassy eyes. Check your own face in a shard of ice and admit what you see. The ridge holds. The squad holds. The wind keeps its counsel. Somewhere far off, the war still rages. Here, for now, the enemy is a number on a thermometer and a force you cannot see. It will not charge. It will not retreat. It will wait, and it will win if you let it. Breath hits the air and turns to a glittering mist that steals heat from the mouth and lungs. Every inhale razors the throat. The first minute is a shock, the kind that narrows the world to the sting of cold and the rasp of fabric over frozen skin. The body clamps down blood vessels in fingers and toes to keep the core warm. Heat withdraws from the perimeter like a panicked retreat. By minute 2, a soldier learns the truth about wind. The breeze is not a breeze. It is a blade that finds gaps in cloth and armor and slides along the spine. Eyelashes frost. Sweat from a previous march becomes an enemy. Thin crystals setting in the collar and along the back where the pack pressed fabric to skin. Moisture is a thief. It robs warmth fast and without mercy. Hands fail first. By minute 3, glove liners that felt thick now feel like paper. Fine tasks become clumsy. A buckle resists. A tab slips. The brain sends orders, but the fingers are blunt tools. Numbness creeps from the tips toward the knuckles. Pain sharpens, then fades into a dangerous quiet. Frostnip is not dramatic. It is a silent closing door. By minute 4, the face tightens. Cheeks lose color. The nose stings, then dulls. Speech slows. The jaw feels heavy. The tongue misbehaves. A canteen cap that would spin off in summer lock solid. The metal bites. If a soldier forgets to keep water upside down, the ice forms at the mouth first and turns a drink into a block. Small mistakes multiply when the cold is a constant pressure. Minute 5 attacks the mind. Thinking takes effort. Plans that were clear turn foggy. The body shivers to make heat, but shivering is work and work burns fuel. The appetite hides even as the need for calories surges. The soldier must eat or the shiver will fade and the core temperature will slide. By minute 6, the cold hands the soldier a list of costs. Batteries sag, screens dim, plastic stiffens, fabric that should flex turns to cardboard. A strap fights adjustment. A zipper grinds with ice. Condensation creeps into optics and then seizes. Every tool demands more time, and time is the most expensive currency in the field. Minute 7 belongs to the feet. Laces are a chore. Socks that are damp become a sentence. The ground is iron. Each step telegraphs shock up the shins. The arch strains. Toes lose sensation and with it balance. A stumble in snow is not nothing. It is a fall that packs more snow into open cuffs and cuffs become funnels. By minute 8, the soldier learns to move like a machine. Motions must be deliberate. Waste nothing. Touch nothing metal with bare skin. Keep the core dry. Breathe through fabric. Guard the hands. Guard the feet. Guard the mind. At minute 9, the cold is not a setting. It is a combatant. It does not rush. It applies pressure. It searches for wet, for stillness, for hesitation. It punishes pride. The soldier who respects it lives long enough to feel the sun as a weapon on their side again. Wind drills the tree lean and the thermometer holds at -15. Two figures step into the open field. One wears the wool and cotton of the 1940s. Thin undershirt, scratchy service wool, canvas field jacket, puttees, leather boots with hobnails, a steel helmet that drinks heat. The other carries the logic of modern layering. Moisture-wicking base, insulating fleece, windproof shell, lined boots, balaclava, soft armor hidden under fabric that seals the gusts. A timer starts. Breath steams. The wool soldier moves first, steady at the beginning. Will trap some warmth, but sweat rises fast. Cotton at the skin soaks the first effort. Moisture becomes a thief. The wind harvests that wet and turns it into cold that sinks through the spine. Fingers stiffen. The leather gloves darken and harden. The modern layer test begins with the same task set. Snow shovel. Sandbag. Short rush to the berm. The base layer lifts sweat away and lets it escape. Heat builds, but not the damp that kills it. The shell hisses under the wind and denies it a bite at the lungs. Hands move with smaller pauses. The boots flex and keep blood moving. A pulse oximeter blinks in the dark like a tiny lighthouse. Readings hold. 15 minutes. A weapon drill. The 1940s kit kneels and opens the action. Oil, thickened by the cold, drags like glue. The bolt fights each centimeter. The steel bites bare skin where gloves slip. Fingers lose speed. A round drops into snow and vanishes as if swallowed. The modern kit kneels next. Synthetic oil stays thin. The action runs. Gloves with real grip pinch cartridges without drama. 25 minutes. Fine motor test. Tie line. Fit a match head to a striker. In wool and leather, fingertips feel like wood. The flame flares once, then wind devours it. Again. The modern shell throws a small wind shadow. The striker answers on the second try. A stove puck catches and mutters to life. The sound is small, but it is victory. 30 minutes. Core temperature. The old kit soldier trembles. The body is writing a warning with muscle. Cold creeps into joints and turns stride into stutter. The modern layers show fatigue, not failure. Breath is heavy, but control remains. Frost rims both faces, but one set of eyes still scans and decides, while the other set narrows to a tunnel. The test ends at the bivouac. The wool soldier cups hands over a grudging flame. Steam rises from sleeves and turns to rime at the cuffs. The modern soldier opens a parka and vents heat, then seals it again, saving every advantage earned. Conclusion is not romantic. The 1940s kit was brave, but blind to physics it could not answer. Modern layers do not make the cold gentle. They turn an executioner into an opponent. In winter war, that difference decides who still moves when orders arrive. Wind cuts across the tree lean and the temperature holds at -15. The first thing to go is not courage. It is control. The hands swell inside damp gloves, then shrink as blood retreats. Fine movement blurs. Magazine latches feel smaller. Safety levers feel stiffer. The trigger guard might as well be a lock. A soldier kneels behind a snowbank and tries to clear a simple stoppage. In summer, it is a reflex. Tap, rack, assess. Here, every step drags. Fingers do not separate cleanly. Nails scrape metal that bites back. Breath fogs the chamber and crystals bloom on the ejection port. He knows he must keep breathing away from the weapon, but stress wins small battles before the big one has begun. Nerves slow their messages. The glove liner catches on a sight post. The mid is warmer, but clumsy. The glove is precise, but not warm enough. He swaps between them again and again, losing seconds that do not return. The cold turns seconds into casualties. Trigger control is no longer a pressure curve. It is an argument between numb tissue and a steel bow chilled to the bone. The finger cannot feel the wall. It either slaps or freezes. Shots string low and right. The group opens like a wound. He knows the lesson from instructors. Warm hands are accuracy. Accuracy is survival. Pain arrives late, which is the danger. The fingertips yellow, then turn waxy white. That is frostnip. It lies. It promises that numb means fine. Then the ache rises, deep and convincing, a hammer under the nails. He pushes fingers into armpits for 60 slow breaths. Rewarming stings like electricity. He can either ride it or lose the hand for the next hour. He switches tasks. Buddy check. He looks at another man's hands. Pale, rigid, slow to obey. They trade heat with a chemical pack. They swap positions so movement can pump blood through the wrists. They rehearse drills not for speed, but for certainty. Count rounds by touch. Strip a frozen magazine with the palm, not the fingertips. Keep a dry cloth for the bolt face. Never breathe on metal. Never lick a split lip. The cold attacks the mind through the hands. When you cannot trust your grip, you begin to hesitate. When you hesitate, you make noise, you waste motion, you burn calories that you cannot replace. The bivouac is 100 meters away and feels like a mile of broken glass. He forces a reset. Elbows in, shoulders down. Trigger press as a steady climb, not a spike. If the finger will not feel the break, the eyes must read the sight, and the breath must be the metronome. The shot finally lands where it must. The group tightens. It is not comfort. It is control reclaimed inch by inch. The field teaches without mercy. Hands fail first. Protect them, warm them, train them, or the cold will write the ending for you. Wind scours the ridge and turns every breath into a white veil. The squad halts among firs glazed with rime. The order is simple and unforgiving. Hold the tree lean. Cover the draw. Be ready to fire on the minute. Cold does not bargain with orders. A rifle comes up and the trigger takes the first press like wet clay. Nothing. The bolt handle resists as if welded. Factory oil that once shimmered in summer has congealed into paste. The metal drinks heat from the glove, then from the fingers beneath, and still will not move. The soldier plants the buttstock, levers the handle with his whole arm, and the bolt breaks free with a dull snap that feels expensive. Somewhere inside, a spring that should flex has turned brittle. The action cycles. The round strips. The bolt slams home with a reluctant clack. Lesson 1 lands hard. In this weather, metal obeys a different set of rules. Frost crawls across the rear sight like ground glass. The front post blooms a halo. Do not breathe on the sights. Warm fog turns to ice in a blink. The soldier angles the rifle away from the mouth, counts 5 slow breaths, then wipes the rear notch with the edge of a wool sleeve. Clear enough to aim. Not perfect. Perfect is a summer word. Lubricant is the enemy now. A dry film works where oil fails. Graphite dust rides a toothbrush across rails and lugs. Excess grease gets pushed out with a rag that crackles when bent. The firing pin channel must be clean. Light strikes are silent killers. The soldier strips the bolt with clumsy mittens, then without them, bare fingers sticking for a heartbeat to cold steel. Pain flashes bright. The pin comes free. No sludge. Reassemble. Work the handle 5 times. Listen to the rhythm. Feed. Lock. Extract. Eject. The rifle begins to remember it is a machine. Magazines complain too. Springs that were lively at room temperature sag in the cold. Rounds nosedive on weak tension. The soldier loads 1 less than full, palms each cartridge forward, confirms the top round sits true against the feed lips. The floor plate groans when snapped shut. Good enough. The plan demands a signal at the half hour. A flare will show the position. A shot through a stump will sound like normal firing. The watch ticks under a cuff stiff with ice. The squad settles deeper behind snow cut from the drift, rifles nested under coats when not aimed, bolts kept forward to seal out blown ice. Muzzles are taped. The tape will shred on the first shot and keep snow from crawling down the bore before that. The minute arrives. The soldier sees shapes move in the draw, small and dark and quick against the pale. Gloves come off. Skin on metal. The sight picture wobbles through shimmer. A last breath goes out to the side. The trigger takes pressure, and the break is clean and sudden. Recoil is sharp and honest. The bolt runs. The case leaps. The second shot follows before the first echo dies. Cold still rules the ridge, but the rifle works. It works because it was taught again in the language of winter. Keep it dry. Keep it close. Do not feed it your breath. Trade comfort for function. Accept pain for certainty. The soldier watches the draw collapse into stillness and feels heat return, slow and mean, one heartbeat at a time. The timer begins at -15°C. Breath hangs in the air like chalk dust. A rifle rests on a sandbag. A machine gun waits on a bipod. Both were cleaned the night before in a warm room. Both were oiled according to different eras. The older rifle carries period grease along the bolt lugs and rails. The modern gun carries a thin layer of low-temperature synthetic oil. The crew steps back. Cameras roll. The safety officer nods. First attempt. The rifle bolt is driven forward. It stops short with a dull, rubbery feel. The handle lifts again, then down harder. The striker finally trips, but the delay is visible in the shooter's eyes. A soft thud answers instead of the expected crack. Light strike. The cartridge comes out with a smear of thickened lube on the primer rim. The clock keeps moving. Immediate action. Wipe, cycle, try again. The bolt rides over a film that now behaves like cold honey. Steel on steel prefers a clean boundary. Instead it meets a break. Every moving surface drags. Every spring fights a new enemy that no manual lists as hostile. Temperature has raised the viscosity past the limit. The rifle is not broken. It is drowning. Cut to the machine gun. The charging handle is racked. The return is slow. The sear resets, but the bolt closes as if through sand. First burst. One round. Pause. Then two sluggish reports. The rate of fire has collapsed. The buffer feels wooden. The feed tray shows a faint glaze where oil has chilled into wax. The assistant gunner strips the cover, gloved hands careful and blunt at the same time. In cold, dexterity fails before courage. We reset with control samples. Degreased parts that run nearly dry. A sparing touch of graphite on contact points. The same temperature, the same drill. The rifle now chambers with a crisp metallic snap. The firing pin travels without swimming. The machine gun cycles with an honest rhythm. No magic. Only friction reduced to what the steel can accept. Now the test that matters. The warm room myth. Weapons that run perfectly at 20 degrees are left to cool for an hour in open wind. On return, the first movement tells the truth. Modern synthetic still slows, but it moves. Period grease becomes a sealant. It has crossed its pour point and changed its purpose. It no longer lubricates. It locks. Lessons follow in hard order. Degrease more than pride would like. Use the thinnest film that prevents bare galling. Prove the action at the target temperature, not at the table. Keep a solvent rag in the pocket next to body heat. Do not trust the sound of the first shot. Feel the return of the bolt. Watch the ejection pattern. Listen for the hollow note. That means springs are not completing their travel. Cold does not argue. It rewrites procedures. In this weather, maintenance is tactics. A gun that fires once is a promise. A gun that fires twice is a plan. A gun that fires to empty is survival. Snow hisses as it drifts across the tree line, a steady sheet that steals sound and heat. The thermometer reads -15, but the wind scrapes it lower. Breath turns to ice on lashes. Hands throb inside stiff gloves. Somewhere beyond the ridge, the dull thud of charges begins. The exercise calls it simulated shelling. The body treats it like the real thing. A squad drops into a shallow fold of ground. There is no talk. Every second, without fire, drains strength. One soldier kicks a trench into the lee of a fallen spruce to break the wind. Another scrapes down to mineral soil with a mess tin, because fire on snow eats itself alive. The team lead parcels tasks with hand signs. Security, tinder, kindling, heat source. Cold wood is dead weight unless it is honest dry. Knives bite into a wrist-thick branch to shave feather curls, pale as straw. A hatchet frees the dry heartwood inside a split log. Pockets yield a cotton pad matted with petroleum jelly. Someone has birch bark from earlier reconnaissance, rolled and kept inside a jacket to stay warm. It smells of resin and hope. The next thud is closer. Snow dust lifts. Shoulders hunch, but the work does not stop. A striker kisses a ferro rod. Sparks arc and gutter in the wind. The cotton takes a spark and flares, then falters. Hands close around it, cupped to make a human lantern. Breath feeds the ember. Thin curls of wood lay over it, like ribs on a log. Do not smother. Do not panic. Heat wants a path. Another impact. The fallen spruce sheds a white cloud. A sentry taps a shoulder and points. Time is pressure now. A compact fuel tab comes out, scored and have to save inventory. It slides under the feather bundle. The striker throws again, longer this time, the wrist a metronome. Flame walks across the cotton, licks the tab, becomes blue, then yellow. It holds. Kindling stacks in a T that barely rises above the trench lip. A larger piece bridges the top to throw sparks downward. This is a low signature fire, built for heat, not light. Wet sleeve steam. Gloves off, gloves on, rhythm set by pain and need. Metal canteens ride near the heat, lids cracked to keep ice from welding them shut. A cup of snow becomes a mouthful of water in slow motion. The shelling rhythm accelerates. The team compresses around the trench, backs to the windbreak, rifles wedged safe. One soldier fans the fire with a folded map, careful not to lift sparks into the night. Another needs a ration bar until it softens, then breaks it into pieces that taste like sawdust and salvation. A medic watches faces and fingers, counting color and tremor. The first real warmth arrives as something felt rather than seen. It loosens jaws, returns precision to fingertips, divides thought from panic. Weapon bolts cycle and stay free. A lighter oil waits in a breast pocket, thin enough to survive the cold. It kisses a rag and a bolt carrier with a whisper. Discipline returns. The charges stop. Snow falls in delicate silence. The blaze is no bigger than a helmet, but it is a boundary line. On one side is cold that owns you. On the other is a fire you fought for with skill, coordination, and nerve. The lesson is brutal and simple. Under pressure, heat is a tactic. Fire is not a comfort. Fire is a decision you make, and then keep making until you win. Snow grinds under boots and the wind arrives like a blade, stealing heat in seconds. This is the hour when a unit either knows how to build a knight or pays for ignorance with fingers and thought. The ground is iron, the air is dry and merciless, and every movement has a cost. Start with site selection. Do not stop on a ridge where wind scours and exposes. Do not sink into the low ground where cold air pools and moisture gathers. Choose a lee slope with natural cover, enough distance from timber that might snap under ice load, close enough to fuel and concealment to work fast. Shelter means structure before comfort. Snow is material, not just enemy. Kick a trench down to mineral soil if you can, or pack snow into hard blocks and raise a wall on the windward arc lash poles. Stretch a tarp or a poncho line with a steady apex, and drop the edge to the wind like a shield. Lower is warmer. Tight is warmer. Every flap and gap is a doorway for convective loss. Secure lines low so gusts cannot pluck them. If you have a tent, face the door away from the wind and bank snow along the skirt. If you have only canvas and rope, you still have a roof if you keep your hands steady and your plan simple. Wind is not just discomfort. It multiplies heat loss through convection and strips moisture from breath and skin, then gives it back as ice on gear. Build a windbreak to the height of a knee at minimum, higher if time and strength allow. Shape entrances like a dogleg so gusts cannot shoot straight inside. Keep the interior small. Air volume is heat volume you must pay for with calories and fuel. Moisture is the real assassin. Sweat in your base layers will turn to a cold shell the moment effort stops. Work with discipline. Strip a layer before heavy labor. Vent zippers and cuffs. When you finish cutting wood or packing snow, change into a dry layer immediately, even if the air punishes the skin for a minute. Keep socks dry in a sealed bag and rotate them on a schedule. Gloves must have a dry reserve pair, or you will watch dexterity bleed away until a simple knot becomes an impossible task. Heat loss follows 4 roads: convection from wind, conduction into the ground, radiation to the night, evaporation from damp fabric and breath. Break each road. Insulate the ground first. Pine boughs, brush, foam pad, even empty ration cartons flattened into layers will buy back degrees that a thicker jacket cannot. Build a small reflective wall behind the fire and a dark backdrop inside the shelter to catch radiant heat. Keep fires small and efficient. A large fire eats fuel, throws sparks, and tricks you into sweating. A small, steady flame paired with windbreak and ground insulation beats a bonfire on frozen earth. Cooking is part of warmth. Hot food is fuel and water is as vital as ammunition. Melt snow only after you lay a base of liquid water in the pot to prevent scorching. Add a pinch of something to seed the melt. Sip steadily. Dehydration hides in cold air and thick layers. Urine should run light, not dark. If it runs dark, you are losing the fight from the inside. Establish a routine or the cold will set one for you. Fire check, shelter check, body check, hands, feet, groin, armpits, face. Buddy eyes on ears and nose for pale patches. Rotate tasks to keep blood moving without flooding layers with sweat. Keep tools inside the shelter or in the snow with handles up so they do not freeze into the ground. Before sleep, stage boots open and liners warm. Loosen laces, never over-tighten. Tight gear strangles circulation and invites frostbite. There is no romance here. There is only discipline, friction, and the slow creep of cold that waits for gaps in planning. Shelter is the first weapon. Wind is the first enemy. Moisture is the silent ally of that enemy. Heat is your mission. Build it, defend it, and carry it through the night. White breath spills into the night as the squad steps from the truck and the cold takes hold like a hand around the throat. Snow squeaks under boots. Fabric stiffens. At -15 degrees Celsius, the world narrows to wind on skin and the pain that rides inside gloves. The objective is simple on paper. Cross the tree line, hold the ridge, survive until dawn. The cold does not read orders. 2 volunteers carry the comparison. One wears layered modern textiles that trap heat and move sweat. The other wears wool, cotton, leather, and steel of an older war. 10 paces in, the test stops being theory. The modern layers breathe. The vintage set grows heavy with damp, then hardens. Fingers lose the fine touch first. A canteen cap becomes a puzzle. A buckle becomes a wall. Hands fail before courage does. Trigger discipline degrades as nerves slow and pain blurs the line between safe and lethal. The squad drills dry fire. The click is sluggish. Breath fogs the sights and then freezes there. A mitten brushes ice from metal and steals what heat remains in the fingers. Metal turns into an enemy. Bolts resist. Return springs feel brittle. A sight post gleams with a skim of ice. The armorer lays out a plan on the snow. Work slow. Keep parts in cloth. Warm steel against the body. Accept that every operation costs body heat you will not get back. Oil tells the truth. The wrong lubricant becomes glue. The right one is thin and unforgiving to skin. The squad rubs actions with sparing drops, then cycles them until motion returns. Every drop is a promise that might fail when the wind rises again. The mock bombardment begins. Charges thump in the forest, close enough to shake snow from limbs. Under that pressure, the squad must light a fire. The lesson is not romance. The lesson is speed. One cuts dead twigs, one shields the match from the gust, one feeds tinder, one watches for light discipline. The first flame gutters. The second holds. The fire is small, hard, and alive. Shelter is a geometry problem. Wind eats heat faster than any enemy. The bivouac goes up behind a fold in the ground. Fabric faces away from the gusts. Snow walls grow where the drift is kind. Moisture is the quiet killer. Wet wool is a verdict. The squad strips what can be dried and hangs it near the ember line. Pride has no place here. Only procedure. Calories or collapse. Rations, fat, and fueling the furnace lost. Now the body becomes a stove. Without fuel, the mind turns slow and hope turns brittle. Fat is heat. Carbohydrates are speed. Protein is repair. The squad eats what the era allows. Hard biscuit, tin meat, chocolate that snaps like glass. Hot broth brings hands back from the edge. There is no feast. There is only the math of survival. Feet decide the march. Socks rotate like ammunition. Skin is checked by touch and by smell. Numbness is not a sign of toughness. Numbness is a warning. Laces freeze. Toes swell. The earth is iron. A step that slips can end an operation. Snow changes tactics. Sound travels. Light betrays. Movement becomes a story told by 1,000 prints. The patrol moves slow, breaks trail, circles back to confuse, then settles into the shape of the terrain. Night magnifies every error. Silence is the only ally that grows stronger with the cold. Dawn edges in without warmth. Weapons cycle. Fire dies to coals. The ridge holds. No metals wait here. The squad has learned what the cold decides. It decides who planned, who adapted, and who respected a foe that never tires. The report will list distances and times, but the truth is simpler. In winter, the strongest weapon is discipline, and the strongest enemy is the loss of heat. Marching begins before the first step. At -15, every choice about feet is survival, not comfort. The platoon halts in the tree line, laces checked, socks layered dry on dry. No wrinkles, no loose heel that will blister into a game ender by midday. Boots are brushed free of ice, gaiters sealed. Grease goes on skin where seams rub. Foot powder guards against sweat turning to ice. No one argues. They all know the clock that trench foot keeps. They step out onto crusted snow that sometimes holds and sometimes collapses. Each break strains ankles and twists knees. The frozen ground booms under weight like a drum, broadcasting movement down the draw. Pace changes to a slow, deliberate glide, heel down soft, toe testing. Silence is a tactic. The cold punishes noise with attention. After 40 minutes, the first warning signs arrive. Toes sting, then go silent. Numb is not relief, it is a siren. The lead pair signals a short halt. No one sits. Sitting steals heat. Boots are loosened slightly to restore blood flow without letting the socks swim. Insoles are shaken free of frost. A dry pair of socks in a chest pocket, warmed by the body, is now worth more than ammunition. The wet pair steams briefly and stiffens as it freezes, folded and stowed to thaw later inside a jacket. They move again. A creek crossing is a trap. The ice looks solid until it is not, and the penalty is a boot filled with black water that turns a foot into meat within an hour. The crossing is probed with a pole. Men step on deadfall branches laid like ribs. On the far bank, each boot is kicked against a trunk to shatter the ice shell. The soldier who slipped goes to the middle of the file, guarded by eyes that watch for stumbling. If the foot loses color, he will be pulled out whether he accepts it or not. By the second hour, sweat is the enemy. Overdressed men are wet men, and wet men are casualties. Layers vented, cuffs opened, tempo managed by the cold. The snow hides ruts that wrench ankles. Every misstep means more friction, more heat, more damp. The corporal calls a foot check and cover. Socks off, soles inspected. Skin that is white and waxy gets warmed with a bare hand in an armpit. Skin that is gray and hard means frostbite is starting its quiet work. No one is proud. Pride does not bring back toes. Trench foot is patient and cruel. It does not need freezing, only cold and damp in time. Hours become damage. Blood vessels clamp down, nerves misfire, tissue starves. The prevention is discipline. Rotate socks. Keep feet moving inside boots. Stamp gently, not wildly. Never sleep in wet socks. Elevate when halted. Dry when you can, not when you want to. The ground steepens. Kicks form steps in the drift, each a cost paid from the calves. The platoon breathes in clouds. Rifles are kept clear of snow, but it is the feet that decide fate. One man with blistered heels will slow 10. One man with a numb foot will misjudge a step and tumble a squad. The mission shrinks to the rectangle of a boot's sole and the thin warmth inside it. At last, the ridgeline. A wind that flays skin. Positions are scraped into iron dirt that refuses the shovel. The day is not won yet. Dry socks again. Boots loosened for a minute, then retied. A candle in a kin warms nothing but morale, yet morale warms decisions, and decisions keep feet intact. Night will demand another march. Those who still feel their toes will make it. Those who ignored the small pains will learn what cold decides. Cold makes every mistake louder. At -15, snow crust shatters under a careless heel and carries far across the frozen treeline. The patrol moves in staggered file along a shallow draw, men spaced at 5 meters, each step placed in the leader's print to cut noise. Webbing is taped, buckles wrapped, bayonets lashed tight. Metal on metal is death at night. Breath steams into white flags, so they angle chins down and breathe through cloth to keep the plume low. Movement rides the wind. When the gust rises through the pines, they move. When it dies, they freeze. Knees bend, weight settles, no leather creak, no sling rattle. The point man tests each step with the outside edge of the boot, rolling forward, listening for the telltale squeal of dry snow. The second counts paces on beads and drifts the formation gently left to hold the azimuth. Red filters are hooded by the palm for a 3-second map glance, then darkness returns. Watches are taped to kill shine. Faces are rubbed with soot from the last fire to break the pale mask of skin. Visibility is a trick of angles. They avoid sky lining on ridges and crawl the shadow side of a low stone wall, using snow drifts as cover. The moon lifts and turns the field into hard glass. White smocks flatten their shape, but it is posture that keeps them unseen. They become rocks when the field is open, saplings when the path narrows, stumps when the flare cracks overhead. Flare drill is automatic. Faces down, one knee. Rifles angled into the snow to hide reflections. Count to 8. Move only when the light fades. Sound discipline shapes tactics. Hand signals replace speech. Halt, listen, move. Each halt is 60 seconds of absolute silence. Far to the east, a truck changes gears and echoes along the river ice. Closer, a branch pops under weight not their own. The rear man marks a potential flank with a slow glove point and a squeeze on the shoulder ahead. The file folds into a shallow chevron, fields of fire adjusted by tiny shifts of barrel. Night is not cover. Night is a battlefield itself. They route through a frozen creek to mask tracks, stepping on exposed stones to cut the sign. A snow bridge groans. The point tests with the muzzle and detours. Every decision is a trade. Speed bleeds security. Silence beats speed. The objective is the ridge and the listening post beyond it. Recon, not glory. They pass within 50 meters of an enemy picket. Frost crystals drift on their sleeves like ground glass. No one turns ahead. The wind rises. They move. The wind arrives first. It slides under collars, climbs sleeves, and drains heat with a steady patience that outlasts courage. At -15, breath becomes a metronome of risk. Every inhale stings. Every exhale frosts the edge of vision. The line is quiet, not from calm, but because mouths refuse to waste warmth on words. Movement slows because hands fail first. Fingers that once set fuses and tied knots now argue with buckles. A trigger feels distant, as if it belongs to someone else. The brain keeps issuing orders that the body cannot execute. Time lengthens. Small tasks consume minutes that the enemy can spend. Metal declares its own battle. Springs lose life. Oil thickens into drag. Sights bloom with ice. A clean mechanism becomes a grinding puzzle. The lesson is not about heroics. It is about margins. Margins shrink in the cold until they cut. Fire is the difference between a position and a tomb. But flame requires dry tinder, patient breath, and hands that can still pinch. Under the murmur of simulated shelling, the team shields a spark with bodies, then feeds it like a wounded thing. The glow grows, and with it the ability to think. Without heat, planning is poetry. With heat, planning is work. Calories turn into ammunition. Fat and sugar are no longer comfort. They are fuel lines to the core. A soldier who eats late pays early in shivers and mistakes. Water hides in ice, and thirst disguises itself as fatigue. Leaders watch faces for the slow blink, the fixed stare, the stumble that says the cold owns another share of the unit. Tactics bend to the snow. Sound carries farther. Footprints confess routes. Night grants cover, but steals dexterity. The safe plan is the one with fewer exposed hands, fewer metal tasks, fewer minutes stationary. Speed is survival, but only the kind measured in efficient motions, not in reckless distance. In the morning, the ground answers. Boots freeze stiff. Straps bite. A man stands and feels age land on his back. And yet the unit moves. Not because of slogans, but because the enemy suffers the same math. Victory in this weather belongs to whoever spends less life on each step. The cold does not break lines with drama. It erodes them. The side that learns faster keeps a line to hold. The ridge looks calm from a distance, but the night says otherwise. Wind scrapes the broken pines, the Abbey crowns the skyline, and every hollow hides steel. Men step down to the rapido with dry mouths and heavy packs, knowing that one wrong foot can rewrite a family's history. The hook is simple and terrible. Before anyone can storm a hill in daylight, someone must draw a line through darkness and wire. Monte Cassino is not only a monastery. It is a system of stone, terraces, and interlocking fields of fire. Since winter, the German positions have studied every approach. Mortar plates are dug into vineyards. Machine guns rake the obvious gullies, then switch to the places where a man thinks he is clever. The fourth battle begins in May, and the night war spreads beneath the ruins as patrols look for something more valuable than an enemy. They look for a way through. A small recon team forms at dusk. Poles from the 2nd Corps, sappers with mine prods strapped along their packs, and a Gurkha scout who has walked this ground before the last moon. No one speaks in the assembly area. A runner checks the field telephone line and tests the faint buzz at the handset. The briefing is practical. Cross the river where it bends against a gravel bar. Avoid the orchard under the terrace. Record every wire, stake, and flare pistol. Mark a lane if time allows. Return before first light with a path that a company can follow. The rapido is cold and fast. Rifles carry above the shoulders. Men move in threes. The lead sapper feels the gravel change to mud and signals a halt. A bamboo pole dips ahead of his boots. The tip touches wood, then steel. The German minefield begins not with a sign, but with a pattern. Tripwires sit knee-high for a running man and ankle-high for the careful one. The team works the margins, counting breaths, counting steps. An S-mine case waits in the weeds, its prongs like a dead plant. The sapper marks the danger with a cloth strip and a direction arrow pressed into mud. Far above, the Abbey silhouette cuts the stars. Mortars speak in fours and then are silent. The patrol learns the ground by absence. Where grass is unbroken, there is wire. Where earth is churned, there is recent traffic from a relief. The Gurkha scout reads the slope by smell and sound. Wet limestone means a runnel. Dry dust means exposed steps. He taps a shoulder and points to a terrace wall where a slot in the stones could hide a pistol flare. The team arcs wide. In later years, veterans will remember little details that never fit into maps. A Polish corporal remembers the taste of soap in his mouth from biting a strap to keep teeth from chattering. An Indian sapper remembers the way the mine prod hummed against a buried cap, a sound too faint to hear, yet real in his bones. A radio man remembers the cloth insulation of the field telephone line snagging on a thorn and the fear that the line would sing and give them away. These fragments shape a truthful picture of the night war. The patrol climbs toward Hill 593 and feels the ground squeeze. Interlocking arcs close their jaws. The correct answer is patience. The lead sapper anchors a white tape at a safe stake and feeds it forward hand to hand. When the tape reaches a terrace lip, he pauses for a full minute. A star shell blooms over the valley. Every man becomes a rock until darkness falls back into place. The tape moves again. Behind them, another pair sets empty sandbags as low markers that a following platoon can feel with boots. They find the gap just before midnight. It is not a gate. It is a narrow seam where two belts fail to overlap. The patrol maps it by counting paces and by angles to a shattered pine and a boulder shaped like a helmet. The runner taps the handset and murmurs position codes to the rear. Artillery notes the data for a smoke screen on demand. A small victory, measured in 10 meters of safe earth. On the way out, the night grows heavier. A wire snags. A flare pistol coughs once from a rock crack, and a white sun lifts over the terrace. The team freezes, then flows backward along their own tape, stepping into their own footprints. A machine gun sides the orchard where they chose not to walk. Good maps and humble luck keep men alive. Before dawn, the patrol returns over the rapido. The commander waits with a trench coat over his shoulders and a pencil on the map board. The sappers lay down their notes with stiff fingers. The gap is real. The lane is marked. The losses are counted in bruises and a single torn sleeve. In a few hours, other men will move along that invisible road. Some will fall. Some will reach the next wall. The Abbey will still look down, ancient and unmoved, while the night war writes another thin line that daylight will try to hold. The valley falls quiet as the sun drains from the terraces below the Abbey. In a dimmed cellar near the Rapido, a platoon crowds around a grease pencil map taped to a crate. The patrol leader traces the river line, the orchard wall, the rise toward height 593. He sets 3 aims for the night. Verify a suspected gap in the mine belts, mark a safe lane to the forward lip, and return with bearings before midnight. Every man repeats the route, and the time checks. Watches are synchronized by touch and nod, not voice. The kit is stripped to essentials. Wire cutters wrapped in cloth. Field phones with handsets muted. Probes taped to rifle barrels. White tape for the ground, red for danger. One Bangalore section waits in reserve. This is a search, not an assault. The signaler reads the alphabet of prearranged light signals. The runner rehearses messages to carry when the wire falls silent. A medic packs morphine ampoules, tourniquets, and a single stretcher pole broken into 2 halves. Veterans of the sector remember the smell first. Cordite from the last barrage trapped in the warm stone, then damp earth as night draws out moisture from the terraces. They recall the feel of the S-mine fuse under a boot sole, a click no louder than a fingernail, the violent stillness before the jump. Polish sappers describe the discipline drilled for weeks on the Leary Plain: probe, cut, mark, test again. Gurkha scouts speak of learning a new rhythm, step and pause, the footfall taught to disappear into the rubble. At last light the patrol slips from the cellar. The river crossing is done in pairs, boots placed exactly in the prints ahead. On the far bank the world reduces to angles and shadows. The orchard wall becomes a landmark more reliable than any star. Tripwire stakes, driven by hurried hands months earlier, show as pale scars in the soil. A sapper drops to a knee and draws a circle around a pressure plate with a blunt pencil. Another threads white tape along a path already taken, never ahead. A flare burns out of sight behind a ridge. Everyone freezes. The platoon breathes again, one lung at a time. A phone handset passes hand to hand, and a murmur tells the cellar that progress continues. Ahead, a shallow ditch hints at the suspected gap. The leading pair move to a crawl, palms fanning the ground. They find 2 cut wires, then a third that feels new. A bypass, not a gap. The leader draws the lane on a card with bearings to the Abbey Tower and to a blasted cypress he knows will still be there at dawn. When the first mortar search beat begins to walk the terraces, the patrol shrinks into the earth. The medic slides to a man nicked by shrapnel and seals the wound without a sound. On the way back the markers are set, white for safe, red for no step. Each length laid for the assault teams that will come before daybreak. The cellar door closes on mud, sweat, and the scratch of pencil on paper. The report is short. A lane exists if widened. Mines are mixed German and Italian. Enemy listen posts active but thin. Bearings confirmed. The map goes up on the wall, and the night begins again for the next patrol. Night work begins with hands, feet, and nerves. The patrol is small, a knot of Gurkhas and Polish sappers who have learned to move as one animal. They carry little that shines and nothing that rattles. Webbing sits tight. Faces are darkened with soot. Each man knows his task as if it has been carved into bone. The Gurkhas move first, light on the slopes, feeling the ground with boot edges and palms. Their rifles are ready, bayonets sheathed. The kukri stays close, a tool as much as a weapon, useful for cutting wire that cannot be seen in the dark. Grenades ride high in pouches for a last-ditch fight. But the idea is not to fight at all. The idea is to be smoke, to be air. Behind them the Polish sappers come on in a low file. Every step is deliberate. One man pays out a thin telephone line that snakes back to the company. Another carries a reel of white tape to mark a safe path once it is found. There are wire cutters, wooden pegs, chalk for stones, and a probe fashioned from steel rod with a rounded tip. A compact mine detector rides with the second pair, its loop held low, its headphones clamped over a wool cap. A number 38 wireless set hums on a sapper's back, but the set stays silent unless the wire is cut or the officer demands a whisper. Training has taught a simple rule. The probe goes in at an angle, never straight down, because straight down is for fools. Soil speaks through the fingers. Loam gives one story, gravel another, clay another still. A sapper who once crossed these slopes in daylight remembers how his hands learned the language of earth until the numbness passed and sense returned. He trusted what the rod told him more than any map. The Gurkha corporal signals halt with 2 taps on a sleeve. Ahead, low pickets form a thin line that could be wire or just the ghosts of old fences. A Polish sergeant slides forward, slipping the probe in shallow arcs. Nothing. Then a faint resistance, too regular to be a stone. He freezes, breath held, and traces the circle of a buried lid. The team eases back. No need to lift. They chart it, peg the ground, and paint a tiny arrow on a rock with dull luminous paste. Tools pass hand to hand with care learned from long nights. A short Bangalore section is assembled for a strand of wire that cannot be crawled. The fuse burns soft. The charge cracks like a door slamming 2 valleys away. Silence rushes back. The telephone man whispers to the rear that the lane will be ready soon. By the time the first hint of pale sky touches the Abbey, the tape runs in a pale ribbon through scrub and stones. What the men carried has done its work. No heroics, only craft. Men and kit, tuned to the same quiet purpose, have bought a path where none existed, and the battalion will walk it before the sun gives the enemy their sight. The patrol kneels in a crouched line, breath frosting in the damp Italian night, while the sappers lay out what the ground can and will do to a human body. The German S-mine sits under a dusting of soil, a steel cup with prongs like a cruel plant. Pressure on the prongs, or a pulled wire releases a striker. A half heartbeat later, a black powder charge kicks the inner canister waist high, and at that height a second charge bursts a ring of steel balls. The effect is a storm at chest level. A Polish engineer who worked these fields in May 1944 notes that men learned to fear silence more than fire, because silence meant unseen metal waiting for a footfall. Italian fields around Cassino mix their own traps with German patterns. Wooden box mines hide under needles and chalk dust, nearly invisible to a detector because wood and glass give back no tone. Hollow tiles cover pressure plates in farmyards. Door latches accept a pull igniter with a hair of tension. A Gurkha scout remembers that the best detector is the body when it is still, fingers feeling for unnatural geometry, the straight line in a wild slope, the glint of a tin cap too regular for rock. The sapper method is patient, patterned, repeatable. Probe at shallow angle, from the body, never down onto the unknown. Mark each suspicion with a split stick and a scrap of white cloth. Trace wires to anchors driven into the earth with lazy curves that resist the wind. Tripwire fields rarely sit alone. The German habit is to lace S-mines ahead of anti-tank plates, so that men who rush to a crippled carrier meet bounding fragments. Booby charges sit under the first aid box on a wreck, under the ration tin in a ditch, beneath the loose stone on a mule track. Curiosity is fatal. Procedure is survival. There are sounds. The faint whisk of line under a boot, a tiny chime as a wire kisses a buckle, the hollow tap of probe against glass, the greasy creak of leather when everyone holds a breath and freezes. There are smells. Damp chalk, hot oil, the faint sweet note of explosive that the experienced pick up like a taste on the air. The patrol learns to map by scent and touch. They pass hand signals down the file, a language of palms and wrists. Stop. Mark. Bypass left. Lift only when ordered. A field phone whispers along a line unspooled behind them to a runner at the company switchboard. The line itself is a lifeline and a trip hazard, and the man carrying the reel walks with the care of a bomb maker. Facts anchor the night. S-mine kill radius exceeds its fragment radius because fear expands ground. Teller mine plates sit at shoe depth on terraced slopes. Italian pressure fuses can fail safe or fail deadly depending on moisture. Rain moves soil and resets tension. Every hour changes the field. The sappers log what they see in a pocketbook that smells of wet canvas. They record grid, type, depth, neutralized, or bypassed. The ledger will be used at dawn to draw a safe lane for stretcher teams and a second for ammunition mules. A man breathes out through his nose, presses the probe, finds a rim. He brushes with the side of a hand, not the palm, and reads the curve like braille. He pins the striker, backs out the igniter, pockets nothing, touches nothing else. He marks the corpse of the thing and leaves it for daylight. Another man treads into a geometry that is wrong and stops a tenth of a second before the wire comes tight. He steps back into his own footprint. The file waits while the sapper crawls under his legs, finds the anchor, rigs a hook, and cuts only when ready. The field gives up 1 more meter. By the time the rapido reflects the first gray light, the patrol has stitched a narrow, hesitant path through a living engine. The map gains 2 white tapes across a sea of doubt. The voices that will follow, stretcher bearers, signalers, riflemen, will walk that seam of safety because men tonight learn the anatomy of the minefield by touch, by patience, and by fear that never outruns discipline. The river is a dark ribbon pressed flat by the weight of the night. Reeds whisper, mud sighs, and the patrol kneels on the near bank while the current folds itself around their boots. A Polish sapper checks the tape on his thigh and the coiled line of the field telephone at his hip. A Gurkha scout taps 2 fingers to confirm he will lead the weight. No one speaks above a breath. Orders are passed by touch on the sleeve and short taps on a helmet rim. They slide into the rapido where the water takes the body at the knees and then at the waist. Rifles ride high. A Bangalore section waits behind them, but the patrol is to find a way without noise. A veteran sapper later recorded that he counted his steps in his head and kept his left hand on the bayonet, feeling for wire under tension. He remembered that the river smelled of iron and rotting grass, and that fear sharpened every nerve until the darkness felt granulated, like sand. On the far bank, the mud climbs mid-calf and tries to keep their boots. 2 men go forward with wire cutters, crawling on their ribs. The German wire is old in places, patched with fresh strands, and hung with tin markers that would clink if brushed. Beyond it, the first belts of mines begin. Italian patterns lie flat like biscuits. Wooden shoe mines hide from detectors. S-mines sit proud of the soil in little collars. The sapper corporal traces the ground with a probe angle shallow and patient. He finds the first pressure cap and paints it with a thumb of damp chalk. A path begins as a dotted argument through the weeds. A trip flare scrapes against a sleeve and coughs a pale bloom. The patrol freezes into the earth while the light hisses and dies. A machine gun farther up the bank wakes, searching with a lazy burst that takes the air apart in neat slices. They do not answer. The plan is to stay beneath the battle, not start it. A runner backs down the tape to pass the word that a lane is opening, 2 men at a time. By the hour before dawn, the lane bends through the last wire apron and drops into a drainage ditch that smells of cordite and clay. The field phone whispers when tested. Markers appear, low and mean, a code of knots and tape that only looks like trash to a distant eye. Behind them, the river keeps whispering, and the patrol turns their faces to the heights. The crossing is not a heroic charge. It is a craft. It is patience, nerve, and the slow knitting of a safe line across ground designed to kill. When the first rifle sections ghost over, they step where other men have already placed their weight, and the night gives just enough to let them pass. Night presses like a weight over the slopes below the Abbey. The patrol moves at a crawl, 10 men stretched along a dark thread, each one hand on the shoulder ahead. No moon, only a cold smear of starlight. The officer counts heartbeats between steps to keep the column silent. A Gurkha scout pads forward, saws wrapped in sacking. Behind him, a Polish sapper cradles a probe, breath slow, ears hunting for the wrong sound in the earth. The air is sour with cordite from the day's barges and the animal stink of wet mules somewhere up the ravine. A diary from the Polish 2 Corps recalls raw wool coats soaked through, the chill working inside the joints, the taste of limestone dust with every swallow. Men learn the ground by touch. Fingers find the grain of a broken terrace wall, the greasy feel of a discarded ration tin, the slick thread of a telephone wire that leads back to a shattered post. The patrol halts. From the slope above comes the drag of loose shale, then stillness. They melt to the ground, faces in time and crushed grass. An Indian signaler strokes the handset of a field phone, counting slowly before a single click to test the line. Far off, an engine coughs once and dies. The night resets. At the first marked boundary, a sapper kneels. The probe dips, circles, and rests on metal not stone. An S-mine waits just below the crust. The man steadies his wrist. A hand signal runs down the file. Nobody breathes. He traces the prongs, brushes soil with a cold spoon, marks the rim with a loop of white tape. The gap is inches wide, but it is a start. The senses do the work that eyes cannot. Ears learn the scale of danger. Beetles ticking in grass, cloth whispering on webbing, the lethal song of a tripwire under tension. The nose maps the field. Creosote from stakes, machine oil near a position, damp earth newly turned. A veteran remembers how fear rebuses time. 10 seconds feels like a minute. A minute feels like a march. They move again. The scout tests each step with the flat of his palm before placing weight. In the hollow of a shell crater, the smell turns to rust and wet clay. A boot's sole meets something taut. The scout freezes. The line hums against leather. The file eases backward the way water recedes, inch by inch, until the tension slackens and the wire rests untouched. The patrol leader swallows down the tremor in his throat and signals a detour with 2 fingers. By touch, they find a dry stone step and a cut through an olive grove where the soil is old and undisturbed. White tape unspools in a faint path behind them. When finally the phone crackles, the message sent home is brief and flat. A lane exists. It is narrow and cruel, but it is real. At dawn, others will come through. The men of the patrol turn back the way they came, following the map drawn in their nerves. The Abbey sits above, unseen, unchanged. Below, the ground holds their memory like a second set of prints. Boot soles press into wet chalk and crushed pine needles. The patrol has been moving in a file since the Rapido crossing, breathing through cloth to keep sound down. The hillside ahead is a maze of wire, shallow craters, and the cold geometry of a defended slope. A Polish sapper in front measures distance with his body. 5 slow paces, halt, left hand low, search with a bayonet tip for the next threat of danger. Somewhere above, the Abbey sits in the dark like a lid on a kettle. The first sign is small and ordinary. A taut strand at shin height, almost kindling thin. The sapper freezes. He lifts the line with a stick and traces it to a stake. The men behind hold the earth with their boots. A runner taps a field telephone handset twice. No voice. Only the reassurance of a circuit that still lives. A Gurkha corporal kneels, feels the soil for pressure plates, and points to a narrow cleft between 2 shattered stumps. That is the gap. Then it happens. A back man in the file shifts weight, and something metallic flicks. A tripwire buried under leaf mulch lets go with a sound like a snapped violin string. The world pauses, cruelly patient. 1 breath. 2. A flare erupts from the slope ahead. A hard white sun that chisels every helmet rim and thorn into relief. Shadows jump like enemies. Training drags panic down by the collar. Faces go into the dirt. Rifles lie still. The patrol leader counts to 5 in his head and does not lift it. Machine gun tracer walks above the patrol, blind at first, then searching. The flare bleaches the ground. The sapper closest to the trigger man crawls over his spine, palms warm in the mud, and clamps a hand on the back of the man's neck to make him flat as a letter. An S-mine pops, but does not jump. The delayed charge sputters out in wet soil. No one breathes for a full second. The corporal with the wire cutters is already moving, elbows and toes, cutting a triangle in the strand to keep it from singing again. Veterans would later say that the flare light felt louder than the gunfire. A Polish diary from that week lists the sequence in pencil: wire, light, burst, pause, burst shorter, flare dies. In that pause they crawl. A white tape slides from a pocket and becomes a lane marker. A knife carves an arrow in the mud. The runner taps the handset to signal safe path found. No voice. Only the code of discipline beaten into muscle and bone. Another flare climbs. This time the patrol is under a lip of earth and the light spills past. A mortar round thumps behind them, too far back. The leader decides in the space between heartbeats. Forward 2 bodies at a time. The corporal moves first, then a sapper with a probe, then the light machine gun team. Each man is a measured unit of weight and noise. Each palm on the ground is a promise to the man behind. The flare burns out. The hill exhales. In the new dark, the patrol rises by inches and recommits to the plan. The gap is real. The panic was held. The line will move through before dawn. The patrol halts in the black fold of the hillside, and the medic counts heartbeats instead of seconds. The air smells of cordite and time crushed under boots. Somewhere behind, the Rapido murmurs. Ahead, the monastery is a darker shadow against a moonless sky. A soft click underfoot, a hiss of a flare far away, then nothing. Silence is survival. Movement is rationed. A Gurkha scout freezes with his palm open. The medic slides to him, belly to gravel. A calf is leaking dark warmth through a torn puttee. Fingers work by memory. Field dressing out. Press. Wrap. Tie. No ripping tape that can snap like a shot. Morphine syringe ready but held back until extraction. He dusts sulfa along the edge of the wound and tucks the empty packet away. The patient's hand closes on the medic's sleeve. The grip says fear. The eyes say keep me quiet. The medic nods once. Air in. Air out. No words. The drag line is already marked along a ribbon of chalked stones placed earlier by Polish sappers. The medic signals the bearer pair. They crawl past tripwire stakes blackened with mud and soot, past a dead branch that the patrol uses as a reference. The casualty's webbing is clipped to a loop on the medic's harness. On 3 breaths, they slide him backward, toes leading, heels lifted to avoid scraping rock. A flare blooms somewhere on the ridge, and every back flattens. The world becomes only breathing and the slow pull of hands. At the fold, near the shattered wall, the team switches to the carry. Stretcher out, canvas whispering. Knees under, arms through lift. The route threads shell holes glazed with water, skirts a patch of S-mine bowls the sappers flagged, dips to a gully where a buried telephone line hums faintly. The medic checks the bandage. The bleed is controlled. The foot is still pink. He scratches a time on a tag with a pencil stub and presses it to the man's tunic. Another call in the dark. A sapper with a chest wound, breath bubbling. The medic opens a dressing, seals the flap, props him on the uninjured side. No light, only touch. A runner ghosts past toward the company aid post, counting paces, counting turns, carrying the night in his head like a map. Dawn is still hours away when the patrol reaches the last fold. The monastery remains invisible, but the ground is mapped in pain and tape and memory. The medic wipes mud from his hands and listens as the bearer team moves again into the dark. There will be more. The work is to keep the silence and carry. Night presses down like a weight as the patrol leaves the shallow cover by the rapido. Orders are simple and cold. Find a passage through the mine belts ahead of the infantry assault. The team moves in a file that breathes with the ground. A Polish sapper leads, carrying a probe and a coil of white tape. Beside him, a Gurkha scout drifts a pace off the line, reading the slope and the pattern of scrub the way a hunter reads tracks. Behind them, a runner tends a field telephone wire that pays out soundlessly from a reel, the only lifeline to the company command post. The first minutes belong to the senses. Boots slide, not step. The probe works at 45 degrees, a patient stitch into soil that is stony, then soft, then stony again. Training says count the pressure, mark the rhythm, feel the different resistance of wood box, glass mine, steel casing. Wind carries a faint metallic tang and the sweet rot of trampled weeds. Somewhere ahead, a parachute flare pops and drifts. The team freezes, and the flare dies before its light can settle. The mine belt begins with a whisper. The probe taps a ring. The sapper stops his breath, parts the grass, and sees a dome of German S-mine under a crust of earth. Fingers work slowly, clearing around the pressure prongs. No lift now, just a telltale loop of wire and a low picket to warn the next man. A second sapper crawls past and heads right, peeling the team into 2 feelers that widen the search. When the detector stutters over a shoe mine, they mark it with a sliver of cloth rubbed with luminous paste, a cat-eye visible only a handspan away. Fire comes suddenly and without drama. A short rake of automatic bursts across the slope. The team kisses the ground and waits for the gunner to tire of shadows. A mortar round thumps behind them, far enough to be unimportant. They work on. Where the belts are thickest, the sappers use a short Bangalore, fed forward in sections and slid under a tangle of tripwire. The blast is tight and mean. Dirt rains for a long breath. When it settles, there is a black seam through brush and wire just wide enough for one man. By the hour mark, they have a lane. White tape snakes from picket to picket, no more than a boot width. The runner tests the line and whispers into the handset. Lane ready. Mark to the dry wash. Recommend second lane 50 meters west. The leader scratches corrections on a grease pencil overlay and watches his men place final markers where the slope steepens toward the monastery heights. He thinks of the infantry who will pass here at first light, burdened and loud in the way only a company can be, and he makes the last stretch a little wider. Dawn is a thin gray edge when they pull back. They count heads and kit, and they count the holes in the tape where a fragment clipped it. Later in the diary of a sapper, there is a line about the feel of the probe in his palm and the taste of chalk on his tongue. The record notes 1 wounded, no dead. Lane confirmed by forward platoons at 0430. Enemy fire light and inaccurate. A small entry among thousands, and yet a passage through stone and iron that turned into a road for living men. Night presses down across the slopes below the Abbey while the line holds in a shallow arc around a shell crater and a knot of shattered pines. The men are few and spread thin. A Polish sapper section and a Gurkha fire team have been told to keep the corridor cleared at all costs. Artillery has moved to harassing fire. The loudest sound now is the wind and the slow click of a field phone magneto as a signaler tests the circuit. The EE-8 set sits in a sandbag hollow. Insulation tape is wrapped around scarred fingers. Twice already the wire has been cut by shrapnel or by feet in the dark, and twice a runner crawled the length of a football field to relay a message while another man worked his way along the line with a spool and pliers. They move by touch, counting knots on the cable, pressing it into earth with boot heels, whispering the code words they have practiced since training. Fire discipline is the difference between order and panic. A single shot draws mortars, so the Brin remains cold unless a shadow crosses the final stake. Rifles rest in the crooks of elbows. The Gurkha NCO moves each man with a tap on the boot, resetting arcs, reminding them to sip water, not gulp. The Polish corporal watches the valley and keeps the phone close. When artillery asks for a correction, he speaks slowly, giving bearings off the burned tree and the scar of the rapido, adding the lift time to keep the barrage walking uphill. Near midnight, a flare goes up behind the ridge and turns the world to bone. Everyone freezes. One mine clacks and coughs. A cry lasts half a breath and is gone. The runner is already moving, low, hugging the ditch, carrying the update to the platoon left of the gap, because the phone is dead again and the wireman is out on the slope with his coil. Hours stack like stones. The patrols return in twos, chalk pale under grime, leaving new pickets in place. The phone crackles back to life, and the set relays ammunition counts, casualty tallies, and a final instruction to hold until first light. Dawn arrives as a gray smear, revealing a path marked by white tape and ration tins on sticks. It is narrow, jagged, and real. They held it through the dark with wire, legs, and patience. Dawn came as a thin gray line over the Abbey. The patrol filed back across the shattered terraces and the riverbank, boots heavy with mud and powder soot. At the rally point, a corporal laid out a ground sheet and began the roll. Names answered, names did not. A runner noted the silences in a damp notebook. A Polish sapper later recalled that the pauses felt longer than the night itself. A Gurkha NCO remembered the sound of enamel mugs on mess tins and the absence of familiar hands. Medics worked in a shallow scrape marked by a red lamp under a poncho. Bandages were checked, morphine doses logged, dog tags tied with twine to kit. The company commander spread a map on a radio crate and compared pencil marks with what the patrol had found. Tripwires were sketched as thin slashes. Mines were circled. A narrow thread of safe ground traced from the Rapido reeds toward the shoulder of Hill 593. It was not a road. It was a chance. Artillery liaison arrived with a grease pencil and overlaid arcs of planned fire. The patrol leader spoke in a low voice, careful and steady, recounting each halt, each flare, each time a boot sole flexed and the world held its breath, then did not explode. Veterans remember that the faces around the map were younger than the lines on the paper. They remember the smell of cordite, wet wool, and crushed time. The roll call finished. 2 missing. 4 wounded. 1 dead. Carried down on a door lifted from a ruined farmhouse. The sergeant folded the sheet and slid it into his breast pocket as if tucking someone in. The map, now smudged and human, promised a lane that did not exist yesterday. Command signed the overlay. Guns would lift at 0 hour. Sappers would mark with tape and pickets. The patrol had bought a few measured yards of truth, paid for at night, counted at first light. Night yields to a thin gray over the slopes above the Rapido. The Abbey crowns the ridge, silent stone against a sky that once burned with tracers. What remains begins in the voices of those who walked here. A Polish sapper remembers chalk dust on his palms and the weight of a reel of wire that had to reach a forward phone. A Gurkha non-commissioned officer remembers the earth under his knees, wet and granular, the feel of a bayonet used as a probe more than as a weapon. An Indian signaller remembers counting breaths between artillery lifts, then pushing a handset into a shaking hand. A British medic remembers the stickiness of morphine ampoules and the drag of a wounded man over terraces of rock. They speak of the mine tape that gleamed weakly under blackout hoods, of white phosphorescent paint on stakes, of the way an S-mine announced itself with a pop that meant a second and a half to live. They speak of maps folded to squares that matched the ground, of contours that became ribs and gullies and names for fear. They recall the roll call at first light, the gaps where voices should have answered, the habit of memorizing safe lanes as if they were prayers. The Abbey above was a landmark more than a prize. The ground was the measure. When the hill finally fell, what endured was not triumph, but a ledger of tasks completed under impossible conditions and a chain of hands that did not let go. Today the wind moves through the cedars and across the Polish cemetery. Tape has rotted, stakes have rusted, but the lanes through the dark still run in memory, straight as lines on a map, leading the living back down the mountain. The first explosion does not come from a bomb. It comes from silence. A patrol road lies empty, a guard yawns, and a warehouse lamp flickers twice. By dawn, the garrison discovers cut wires, dead radios, and a rail line twisted like ribbon. No enemy battalion crossed the fields. The attack moved through rumor, paper, cloth, and carbon microphones. This is the moment the curtain lifts and the shadow war steps into the light. Begin with intent. Allied planners mapped nerves, not territory. They studied how fear travels between sergeants and quartermasters, how orders slow when a clerk misfiles a cipher sheet, how a single night blast halts a week of freight. Teams carried wire saws, plastic charges, and pencil timers, but the primary weapon was sequence. Distract a sentry with a decoy flare. Mask footsteps and factory noise. Place the cut on a feeder line, not the main, so repair crews waste hours searching the wrong span. The goal was paralysis that looked like bad luck. Deception elevated sabotage into strategy. Inflatable armor, canvas aircraft, and wooden guns swelled into battalions on enemy reconnaissance photos. Radio nets chattered with staged logistics reports. Couriers left planned breadcrumbs in cafes, train stations, and offices, each hint reinforcing a false narrative. When the enemy moved reserves toward the phantom threat, the real raiders slipped past with time to spare. No flourish, only margins gained by patience and repetition. The radio war felt like chess with a mirror. Operators tuned to midnight schedules, fingers stained with graphite from one-time pads, ears trained to the faint drift of signal under static. Direction-finding vans prowled the roads. Operators spread transmissions across villages, never more than a minute per burst. When an operator vanished, a network went dark, and schedulers forced themselves to wait rather than transmit and die. Discipline, not bravado, preserved the next mission. Inside workshops, technicians built failure into the plan. Charges needed to be survivable in a coat pocket, reliable under cold rain, and effective with improvised detonators. A rail cutter had to bite quietly through tempered steel while a lookout counted the rhythm of a distant generator. Every tool carried a hidden purpose. A pencil that wrote in grease for silent notes on metal. A compass that hid blades. A suitcase with double walls for maps, batteries, and luck. The cost was real. For each bridge that fell, 2 couriers were taken. For each decoy that fooled a reconnaissance pilot, a village risked reprisal orders. The shadow war demanded limits. Teams learned to choose a transformer station still within walking distance for civilians, not the hospital feeder. They learned to cut signal cables after the last evacuation train, not before. Success meant damage measured in hours and days, not in burned homes. By the final seasons, garrisons woke to a new pattern. Ammunition arrived late. Patrols marched to defend empty fields. Commanders hesitated. The shadow war had altered tempo. When the main army struck, the occupied system moved like a man in cold water, heavy, slow, and uncertain. 1,000 small hands had already turned the cogs. The curtain did not fall. It stayed open, and daylight flooded a battlefield that had been prepared in silence. Wind pushes through hedgerows as the team crouches over a grease-stained map. The plan looks simple on paper. Create a false picture so convincing that the garrison will move the wrong way at the right time. This is not stage magic. It is logistics, discipline, and nerves. First, the misdirection. A courier leaves a cafe at dusk, carrying a letter that was designed to be intercepted. It references units that do not exist and depots that do. The goal is not to fool forever, only to set a hook in the enemy mind. Doubt grows there like rust. Deception demands layers. At a field on the coast, crews inflate canvas tanks and align fake tracks with real ones. Headlights sweep in rehearsed patterns. A sound truck idles, projecting the low thunder of engines that are not present. Camouflage teams drag nets over the fakes, then open gaps just wide enough for aerial cameras to take the bait. The enemy analyst will see what he expects to see and will pass it upward with confidence. Radio follows. Operators build a phantom division out of disciplined traffic. Call signs rotate according to a standing order. Routine chatter fills the air with dull precision. Coffee, weather, shipments, delays, all the friction of real life rendered as arithmetic for enemy listeners. Each message is meaningless in isolation. Together they sketch a marching army that is not there. At sea, a cutter drops strips of metallic foil into the wind. The radar screens across the water bloom and smear. Operators on the far shore report multiple contacts. Patrol boats sprint toward a corridor that contains nothing but foam. Each minute that they chase ghosts buys the team another minute ashore. The risk is not theoretical. A single prisoner could unravel the rhythm. A single mismatched footprint could betray the dummy camp. Counterintelligence hunts for that slip. The only defense is procedure. Every fake badge has a ledger. Every lantern pattern follows a schedule. Every rumor seated in a bar is logged and timed against expected surveillance. Deception does not replace force. It bends it. When the enemy shifts reserves toward the illusion, gaps open elsewhere. The team listens on the radio as real men move through those gaps. Boots in mud, bridges taken intact, ammunition saved. No cheering. Only a brief exhale before teardown. By dawn, the field is empty. Nets rolled, dummies deflated, tracks brushed out with pine boughs. The ledger closes with a final line. Objective achieved. The enemy fought the story instead of the soldiers. That is the quiet power of strategic illusion. The suitcase looks ordinary. The weight is not. On a rough table under blackout cloth, the handler unfolds a canvas roll and begins a final check. Each object has a purpose. First, the lifeline. A kneeboard map printed on silk, silent in the wind and immune to rain. The creases point toward rail spurs, transformer yards, and river crossings. A button on the jacket hides a liquid-filled compass. Next, the voice. A hand-sized radio set with clipped aerial, spare crystals, and a burnable code sheet. Send for 20 seconds, move, send again. The enemy triangulates by mathematics and patience. When the cells die, the network goes dark. The bite is small. A well-wrought pistol, ugly and almost silent. Close range only. The slide drags and the magazine is slow to seat. It is not a hero's weapon. It does a single job and leaves little to hear. Alongside it rests a Fairbairn Sykes knife, thin as a whisper, balanced for a single decision in a narrow stairwell. The teeth of Sabotage sit in a tin. Plastic explosive that kneads like bread. Pencil detonators that measure time with chemicals rather than gears. He rolls a charge the size of a bar of soap and fits a sliver of metal to pinch a rail. The lesson is simple. Destroy the irreplaceable. Force the garrison to guard everything. Make every mile of track feel like the front. For metal in motion, there is a limpet mind, all magnets and intent. It clings to a hull with a dull kiss. When the river carries the blast upstream, the occupiers will count barges instead of planning patrols. Cover is a performance. Papers on stock, ink bleeds correctly, stamps cut from rubber. A wallet holds ration cards, work permits, and a receipt for coal that no one will ever deliver. A false bottom in the suitcase hides the radio. Shoes carry heel cavities for microfilm. A shaving brush holds a roll of currency sized to local hands. He dresses. Civilian coat. Country hat. Grease under the fingernails to sell the part. The kit disappears into ordinary weight. His handler studies his face and removes the last trace of pride. Pride gets men searched. There is no romance in these tools. They are made of string, powder, and time. They do not promise victory. They create delay, doubt, and fear. In a city where posters command silence, a bent nail on a rail can speak louder than a speech. The kit leaves the room, and with it goes the thin margin between an unseen ally and an unmarked grave. Night presses down like a lid as the small team approaches the edge of the occupied town. The route was chosen 3 weeks earlier from aerial photos, resistance sketches, and the rhythm of enemy patrols. The canal towpath is narrow, the reeds shoulder-high, and the gravel underfoot is wrapped in cloth to kill sound. There is no heroism here, only procedure. The first rule is simple: do not be seen. The second rule is brutal: if seen, do not be remembered. Insertion was layered from the start. A fishing boat left them on a shoal beyond the outer harbor buoys, then a rubber boat threaded between unlit markers, then the last 100 meters on foot through a drainage culvert below the quay. Every movement had a purpose. Boots were blacked out, metal taped, papers sealed in oilskin, the radio separated into 3 satchels so that one loss would not compromise the whole. The cover story is built from local truth. The lead operative is a commercial surveyor from a provincial firm. His hands show old ink stains. His shoes are scuffed in the pattern of long walking days. In his case are plans that match real streets and real utility lines. He knows the prices of bread, the names of 2 bakers who no longer live here, and the gossip about a factory shift that was reduced last month. Each detail is a key that may unlock doubt. Each key must fit without hesitation. Cutouts form the hidden backbone of the approach. The team never meets a principal without a buffer. A bicycle messenger delivers a blank envelope to a landlord who rents a room to a seamstress who knows only that a client needs a quiet hour. A different messenger picks up a receipt that confirms nothing except that the hour was kept. Faces do not repeat across stages. Voices do not cross circuits. If one link fails, the chain does not lead back. At the first waypoint, a church square, the clock tower is dark. That is the signal. If the belfry is lit by a single lantern, the approach is burned and the fallback route to the river must be taken. The fallback route passes a gendarmerie post, so the surveyor must complain about permits to any guard who stops him. The complaint is long, boring, and salted with references that a local clerk would recognize. Boredom is a weapon. Bureaucracy is a shield. The safe flat has no romance. It smells of cold dust and boiled cabbage. Windows are taped against blast. On a shelf are 6 jars of preserved beets and 1 jar of screws. Under the screws is a hollow where a map can rest flat and silent. The radio is tested by touch, not light. The aerial wire is hidden along a clothesline. If direction-finding trucks sweep, the set will go cold in under 90 seconds, and the operator will read a newspaper upside down while breathing slow and even. Exfiltration begins the moment entry succeeds. A second identity sits under the first, ready to peel free if needed. The surveyor can become a funeral assistant with a change of jacket and a black armband. The team can become mourners who carry nothing but grief and a folded hat. A third path accepts that no exit is possible tonight. It caches the paper, breaks the set into pieces small enough to swallow or scatter, and reduces the mission to memory. Risk never goes to zero. It is managed like a budget. Every step spends a portion, and every clean handover earns a small refund. The team advances because the routes are rehearsed, the covers are dull, and the cutouts are patient. Getting in is not a moment. It is a chain of decisions that hold, one after another, until the lock finally opens. Night air is cold and metallic. A 4-person team crawls through a drainage ditch that parallels the rail bed. Each movement is deliberate. No moon. No friendly lines within 30 kilometers. The target is not a train. The target is the network that feeds trains, lights, and fuel. Break the backbone and the garrison starves in daylight. The scout reaches the culvert first and listens. Steel sings faintly as a freight passes 2 kilometers east. Good. Patrols will be pulled toward the noise. The team leader signals halt, checks the wind for dogs, and points to the rails. 2 tasks here: derailment and delay. A clean cut is loud and obvious. A cratering charge is better. They unpack plastic explosive in flat slabs and press it into the web of the rail. 2-meter spacing, opposing sides, shaped with a shallow V to focus the blast. The engineer sets pencil time fuses, bending the soft metal to 8 hours. He adds a second line, staggered by 15 minutes, in case of damp or shock failure. Nothing heroic, just redundancy. The second pair moves on to the substation a few hundred meters beyond the tree line. A silence rule holds. No talking. All signals are by touch. The fence is old, grounded poorly. They move through and hug the shadows of the transformer bank. The smell of hot oil hangs in the air. The plan is not to create a fireball that calls in half a regiment. The plan is to wound the system. They mount charges at the base of 2 transformers and on the porcelain insulators of the high-voltage bus. Small charges on insulators throw shards and drop lines. Larger charges on casings bleed oil and cook the coils. The fuses are chemical, timed for first light, when repair crews are slow and exposed. A final package sits inside the control cabinet to shear relay linkages. One touch, and the grid coughs for days. The last target sits lower than all of them. Fuel drums in staggered rows under camouflage net. The team salts the dump with ignition pencils and a string of black powder to guarantee sympathetic detonation. But they do not prime all stacks. The aim is not spectacle. The aim is a long burn that denies fuel for a week. Exfiltration routes are planned in layers. The creek bed, the hedgerow, a farmer's track that leads nowhere on German maps. They leave no wire trimmings and no paper. Boots step where boots stepped coming in. The scout stays behind a minute longer to brush out knee prints and sling a decoy wire where a patrol will waste time. Dawn lifts like a blade. A section car rattles toward the cut. The first line of fuses goes, and steel turns into fishhooks. The car folds and blocks the line. 15 minutes later, the second line detonates under the repair crew. The substation hits next. Insulators burst, transformers howl, and the district falls dark. Radios spit, orders lag, then the dump ignites. Flames climb, slow and ugly, and the garrison watches its day die by attrition. The team is already gone, cold and wet, counting minutes to the border. No speeches, only a ledger. Rail down, power down, fuel denied. The backbone is broken, and the body will follow. Night falls over a silent coastline. The sea is calm, the sky is clean, and yet the enemy watches a storm that does not exist. On maps inside a staff bunker, fresh pencil lines mark the buildup of an Allied army that is never meant to fight. The deception begins with shapes and shadows. On a flat field in England, crews haul canvas and rubber over light frames. By dawn, an armored regiment appears where there was only grass the day before. Tank silhouettes stand in rows, their gun barrels rigid, their turrets perfect from a reconnaissance photograph. Fuel drums are empty, but the smell of diesel lingers. Tracks are painted into mud with brooms. A few men push a bicycle pump, raise another Sherman that weighs less than a kitchen table, and step back. To an enemy analyst, mass is mass. Camouflage artists move down the line. Nets break the outline. Burlap hides the shine of rubber. A false maintenance base sprouts from timber and paint, complete with oil stains and scrap metal. The radio section takes over next. Operators tap out traffic for units that do not exist, following strict schedules that mirror the habits of real divisions. Cipher pads are burned each evening. The line must be as disciplined as any brigade. Farther east, carpenters assemble mock landing craft along riverbanks. Piers extend into shallow water. Overhead, crews hang dummy aircraft under the roof of a decoy hangar. At night, fires and lights mimic engine tests. To an enemy pilot who risks a fast pass, the scene matches expectation and training. Photographs confirm it. Intelligence briefings harden around it. Then the sound begins. A line of trucks moves through hedgerows carrying speakers the size of doors. Engineers mix engine noise, track clatter, metal squeal, and shouted orders. The audio rolls across the dark fields. Microphones placed downrange catch the echo and feed it back into the mix. Patrols hear a force that is nowhere near them and radio it in as fact. On the channel, small boats trail strips of metal foil that bloom on radar screens. Columns of false echoes march toward a wrong beach. Beach obstacles face the ghosts, not the real assault. Gunners hold fire. Commanders wait for clarity, and clarity never comes. The point of all this is time. The enemy keeps reserves in the wrong place for one day too long. Headquarters reads reports that confirm what it already believes. The harder a deception works, the easier it is to accept. Even when scouts find a rubber tank, new explanations appear. Decoys are dismissed as cover for a real mass. The fiction grows roots. The result is not clean or theatrical. It is measured in units that arrive late, in bridges that are blown without support, in counterattacks that begin after the window has closed. It is a panzer division that turns its wheels toward a phantom and burns fuel it cannot spare. It is a commander who hesitates, because hesitation once saved him. By the time the enemy understands, the truth has already moved. Real tanks cross real beaches. Real aircraft lift off from airfields that were never photographed. The dummy army stays behind, perfectly still, a museum of shapes and intentions. The battle it won is invisible on the ground, but it is plain on the calendar. The delay is the victory. The shadows did their work. The city sleeps under curfew while a single rooftop stays awake. A courier counts the seconds with a gloved finger, then unrolls a short aerial wire across cold tiles. In a canvas satchel lies a compact radio set, hand-soldered, its valves fragile as eggshells. He chooses a low-power setting. Too much wattage, and the signal will punch a hole through the noise floor that enemy receivers will see at once. Too little, and London will hear nothing. He breathes, keys the transmitter, and begins. Every burst must be short. 30 seconds on air is already reckless. Enemy direction finding vans patrol in triangles, plotting bearings from 2 streets away, from the next arrondissement, from a hill road beyond the river. 3 good bearings make a fix. A fix makes an arrest. The courier works in bursts. Send, shift, wait, listen. He changes the length of each group. He keeps a metronome in his head and breaks it on purpose so that no rhythm can betray him. The message is not words. It is a lattice of 5-letter groups that look like nonsense. Before nightfall, he had prepared a one-time pad, a sheet of digits printed on silk and sewn into his waistband. He adds digits, carries over, subtracts, follows the algorithm with pencil and discipline. The cipher is only as strong as his routine. If he reuses a pad, the enemy cryptanalyst will smell it. If he writes too neatly and keeps the sheet, the enemy jailer will find it. When he is done, he will burn the ashes and smear them into the gutter. Static hisses. Somewhere across the channel, a woman in a gray building writes the groups as they arrive and runs them through the reverse process. She does not know the courier's face or his true name. She knows only that the schedule has slipped by 2 minutes. 2 minutes can mean a street patrol, a broken wire, or a fallen comrade. She signals receipt with a brief acknowledgement and then falls silent. Silence is armor. The courier relocates. He coils the wire and drops through a hatch into a dark stairwell. He has already scouted 3 fallback sites. Kitchen attic, tram depot roof, abandoned greenhouse with a wooden beam that will take the weight of an aerial. He never returns to the same site on the same night. He never lingers when a neighbor opens a window. He thinks of the lesson every instructor repeats. The enemy listens longer than you can talk. In a basement across town, the enemy listens indeed. Headphones on, hands steady. The operator turns a dial through a forest of signals. He marks a faint carrier. He calls to a partner who draws lines on a map. A team starts a truck. The city narrows like a noose. At the greenhouse, the courier has 1 more burst to send. It is an urgent request for detonators and a timetable for rail sabotage. He senses the time pressure in his bones. He keys the set, keeps it under 20 seconds, and ends with a prearranged cut number. Then he waits. A dog barks. A car door closes. He kills the power and listens to the night breathe. Boots enter the street. The vans have a near fix, but near is not enough. The courier has already slipped into the hedgerow and taken the narrow footpath that crosses the canal. The set is heavier now, but he carries it like the future depends on it, because it does. In the morning, trains will slow where a span is weak. A patrol will turn down a different road. An entire regiment will arrive a day late. Direction finding will report a missed chance. The ledger of war will record nothing but the absence of enemy reinforcements. The radio game leaves few monuments. It leaves space, time, and doubt, which are more lethal than any rifle when used with care. Night falls over an occupied city. A cyclist rolls past shuttered shops, counting intersections. He pedals once more, brakes once, and leans the bike against a lamppost with the seat turned slightly left. That tiny detail is the whole message. A dead drop is live. No speeches, no heroics, only a signal that moves like a pulse through stone and shadow. This is a war of mirrors. A courier lifts a loose brick behind a public fountain. Inside lies a hollowed bar of soap wrapped in waxed paper. The paper holds a microdot, a whole page of text reduced to a speck. It lists fuel convoys, troop strengths, and a schedule for a new radar sweep along the coast. Somewhere across the city, an Abwehr handler thinks he owns this network. He does not. The double cross has already begun to twist his leash. The double agent is a patient performer. He builds a personality that the adversary wants to believe. He sends real crumbs to win trust. An airfield that is already known to be empty, a convoy that no longer exists. He bleeds falsehoods into truth just slowly enough to escape suspicion. He learns the rhythm of his interrogators and the tone of their doubts. He errs on purpose. He admits small mistakes to lend credibility to larger lies. When he walks to a letterbox under the arch of a rail bridge, he knows the arc of the sentry's patrol and the way boots echo on wet concrete. He knows that a second echo means he is burned. Networks tighten and loosen like lungs. They must survive a raid, a betrayal, an unlucky glance at the wrong moment. Cutouts carry fragments of messages, so no single arrest can collapse the structure. One woman delivers only shopping bags, never the page inside a bag's false bottom. Another man speaks only to a landlord who collects rent in cash and rumors. The system is a maze where no one sees the whole path, but the path still leads to a defined target. A bridge, a switchyard, a fleet bottled in a harbor. Counterintelligence pushes back. Radios chatter. Direction finders triangulate. Apartments are stripped to bare plaster. Codebooks burn in kitchen stoves that once warmed families. Yet the double agent adapts. He times transmissions to coincide with known interference. He disguises a burst of Morse code as local lightning on a storm map. He places a dead drop in a cemetery beneath a cracked urn that no one has moved since the last war. Success in this shadow war is not a single explosion. It is drift. It is weight on a scale, day after day, until the enemy plans for a division that will never arrive or keeps bombers waiting for a weather window that will not open. A false narrative becomes a scaffold for real operations. Trains run on the wrong timetable. Patrols face the wrong beach. Commanders make the right decisions for the wrong picture. At dawn, the cyclist returns. The bike seat now points right. The drop is clear. He collects the hollow soap and rides away without looking back. The city wakes to ordinary sounds, but the map has already shifted. In the quiet, an unseen hand has bent reality just enough to decide what happens next. Night sits on the city like a lid. Curfew sirens have ended, but the streets are not empty. The occupiers have changed the rules. They no longer chase shadows. They build traps and invite the shadows to walk in. A bakery opens early with extra loaves. A courier arrives, sees the envelope on the counter that matches the dead drop signal, and relaxes. He does not see the man by the stove who remembers every face that enters. He does not know that the baker has a second ledger meant for the secret police. At dawn, direction-finding vans begin to prowl. Antennas swing like metronomes above the cobbles. Somewhere a radio key taps in a back room. The operator keeps his message short, 30 words, no repeat. He counts the seconds between bursts like prayer beads. The vans triangulate slowly. Patrols close off street by street. The occupiers do not kick the door. They switch off the power to the whole block, forcing windows open and neighbors out. Then they wait. Panic is a better informant than any spy. The net tightens at the station. A woman in a red scarf folds into the crowd. She carries a parcel wrapped in newspaper and an alibi wrapped in routine. The ticket clerk makes eye contact too often. Platform guards delay the train for a boiler inspection. A uniformed officer asks for papers, then asks again in a different order. The woman answers perfectly, which is the mistake. The guard watches people, not words. He nods to the plainclothes team at the kiosk. The parcel will travel to headquarters without her. Interrogation begins with silence. A chair, a table, a file with tabs in neat colors. The occupiers have learned that fear grows faster when it is fed with order. They show maps marked with pins. They recite dates that match the network logbooks. They place 2 fountain pens on the table and 1 empty cup. The message is simple. We already know. Tell us the rest. When silence holds, they change temperature, time, and light. They keep the clock awake and the prisoner asleep. They bring pain in measurable increments, never enough to kill, always enough to bend. They prefer signatures to screams because paper lasts longer than echoes. Meanwhile, the counterintelligence section runs a play called the continuation. They do not roll up the radio. They steal it. They send clean messages with compromised codes. Safe houses become snare houses. Letters still reach the countryside, now laced with invisible threads that lead back to town. Two couriers meet at a familiar fountain and greet each other with the correct phrase. They walk away tagged by a boy selling cigarettes who is not a boy at all. The network fractures. Some cut contact and vanish into barns and forests. Some try to rescue the ones already marked. That is what the occupiers want. A rescue attempt doubles the harvest. In the basement, the file grows thicker. Names linked to places, places linked to habits, habits linked to arrests. The city returns to quiet. The lesson is brutal and simple. The occupiers win when the resistance acts like a routine. They win when pride replaces doubt, when codes repeat, when routes repeat, when faces repeat. Survive by breaking patterns. Live by leaving nothing for the file to hold. The legend says a single daring act turns a war. The archives tell another story. Open the after-action reports, and the paper is blunt. Timelines, freight tonnage, repair hours, radio intercepts. Each line cuts through the fog that popular tales leave behind. Take the Midnight Bridge explosion, so often framed as a lone hero with a satchel charge. The files list a week of groundwork. Couriers tested the route. Safe houses rotated. Weather windows narrowed. The detonation team carried shaped charges and a spare set in case the first misfired. Engineers estimated the span would be repaired within 48 hours unless the upstream rail yard was also hit. A second cell struck the yard that same night. Freight stalled for 5 days, not because of a single blast, but because a network synchronized pressure at multiple points. Turn to deception. Stories love perfect illusions and panicked enemy commanders. The documents describe something colder. Dummy armor deployed by a camouflage unit. False radio traffic fed into routine channels. Photographic interpreters graded the deceit as credible, partly credible, or not credible. Aerial reconnaissance later confirmed that the enemy shifted a corps headquarters by 80 kilometers, then shifted it back after ground scouts reported emptiness. The effect was not magic. It was attrition of attention, a slow bleed of certainty. The radio war is often painted as clever agents outwitting clumsy hunters. Logs show a duel of patience. Transmit windows lasted minutes. Direction finders triangulated bearings. When an operator overstayed by 30 seconds, arrests followed within days. Where networks survived, they did so by discipline, not luck. Cut out procedures. Burn codes. Relays that never met face to face. Casualty figures and memoirs punch upward. The ledgers drag them down. Claims of dozens of locomotives destroyed shrink under cross-checks with rail ministry data and wreck repair rosters. The truth is not smaller. It is sharper. A single wrecked bridge during a peak resupply pulse forced an army to reroute fuel, which starved an offensive at a critical hour. Precision, not spectacle, broke tempo. Then there is the cost. Margins of reports carry the names of arrested couriers. Notes from military governors list reprisals. Some missions were canceled when the predicted civilian price rose too high. Others went forward because delaying would have cost more lives on the front. The files do not celebrate. They account. When myth steps aside, what remains is a system. Reconnaissance that measures. Planning that sequences. Teams that accept failure modes and build redundancy. Sabotage is not a miracle. Deception is not a trick. In the records, they become procedures that collapse the enemy decision cycle by hours and days at exactly the moment those hours and days matter most. Civilians move first in this story. The camera follows a mother and a boy along a narrow street in an occupied town. A curfew whistle climbs the walls. A saboteur watches from a doorway. His orders are clear. Destroy the rail junction before dawn. Stop the armored train. Disrupt the fuel convoys. The junction sits beside a worker's block and a bakery. A night shift has just ended. People cross the yard with lunch tins and tired faces. The team studied ethics in training halls. They memorized rules on proportionality and necessity. They practiced diagrams on chalkboards. None of that sounds the same when a child chases a stray dog across the target line. The plan calls for shaped charges under a signal box and a delayed fuse. The fuse will push the blast past the last tram. The delay will also keep the team in the kill zone longer. There is a second plan. Abort and come back in 48 hours, which may allow the armored train to pass with prisoners on board. They split. One moves to the points, another to the relay hut. A liaison from the local network whispers that the garrison executed hostages after the last attack. Names are listed on a wall in chalk. The saboteur runs a thumb over each line as if that could erase it. He resets the clocks on the fuse to the longest safe delay. It is a small act of control in a place where the occupation decides everything. Minutes drag. Boots click on cobbles. A patrol smokes by the bakery door. The mother and the boy vanish into a cellar. The team leader settles on the only honest sentence he can live with. Accept risk to self to reduce risk to others. He arms the last device and pulls back through a garden. Chickens flutter. A man peels potatoes and does not look up. The blast comes like a broken bell. The signal box folds. Rails kink. The armored train brakes hard well short of the junction. No civilian building collapses, but glass jumps from frames. The patrol fires in panic. A round punches the bakery sign. Within an hour, the garrison blocks the streets. Men are dragged from lines. An old teacher is questioned because he keeps maps in a drawer. The team is already in the woods, sick and silent. They did what they came to do. They also lit a fuse that no manual can measure. By morning, the reprisals begin. Rations are cut. A barn burns as a warning. A family loses its son to a labor transport. The bridge will take weeks to repair. Supply columns will feel the delay at the front. A few soldiers will live because the train never arrived. A few villagers will not return because the roundups did arrive. This is the ledger's balance. This is the arithmetic of a shadow war. The team records its report with clear words and steady hands. Damage to rails and signals confirmed. Military objective achieved. Civilian cost observed and unacceptable. They write the names from the chalk wall at the end. Ethics is not a slogan here. It is a decision repeated at every doorway, every fuse, every retreat through a garden that never asked for any of this. After the explosions faded and the radios fell silent, the small teams were called into rooms with bare walls and hard chairs. Debriefers asked for times, distances, names, and failures. Operational maps were covered with pins that showed bridges down, depots burning, trains stalled, patrols redirected. What remained was the ledger. The numbers were cold and the lessons were colder. First, precision beat mass. A handful of people who understood terrain, habits, and schedules could paralyze a garrison more efficiently than a battalion that attacked frontally. Cutting a single signal trunk at the right hour forced commanders to fight blind. Removing a switch key on a rail line halted an entire division. Time, not just tonnage, was the decisive variable. Second, deception multiplied effect. Camouflage, fake traffic, and planted rumors funneled enemy reserves to empty fields while real targets were hit elsewhere. The lesson was simple. If the enemy must make decisions under uncertainty, shape that uncertainty. A lie that costs nothing can save lives and scarce explosives. Third, logistics governed courage. Small teams won or lost before they crossed a border. The quiet chain of couriers, safe houses, dead drops, batteries, and forged papers determined whether a mission survived the third night. Heroism could not compensate for an empty radio or a missed meeting under curfew. Sustainment was the hidden front. Fourth, radio discipline was life. When operators tightened procedures, moved fast, and kept transmissions short, networks endured. When they talked too long, direction-finding units triangulated, doors splintered, and names vanished from the rolls. Technology punished impatience. Fifth, consequences were real and immediate. Occupiers retaliated. Civilians suffered. Each act had a cost that leaders had to price in advance. The only moral defense was rigorous target selection and restraint. Strike what matters, avoid what does not, and accept that some opportunities must be left unused. Finally, the aftermath proved the strategic value. Broken rail hubs delayed entire offensives. Misled commanders split their strength. Armies landed on beaches where the enemy arrived late. Small teams redefined scale. They did not replace divisions. They made divisions possible. Modern planners still study these files for one reason. In every era, there are narrow windows when a few people can move the weight of a war. Find those windows. Guard the networks. Deceive with discipline. Measure success by time gained, not explosions counted. Then leave without a trace.